please.
How about you?
Okay, good evening and welcome to the April 20th, 2021 regular Planning Commission meeting. This is the first in-person meeting we've held since February of 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's great to be back together again, and I look forward to some of the restrictions ending soon. If any member of the public would like to speak on an agenda item or during public comment, which is for non-agenda items, please fill out a comment card located at the back of the auditorium and hand the card to Ms. Gentry, our recording secretary. You may also be recognized by joining the meeting on Zoom and raising your hand in the Zoom application. All comments and questions will be limited to 3 minutes per person. All questions will be answered together after every person has had the opportunity to speak on the same agenda item. Each member of the public that wishes to speak on an item will be asked to state and spell their name and give their address for the record. People in the audience that have handed in a speaker card, just introduce yourself with your name. You don't have to spell it. That pertains more to Zoom. Members of the public may also comment on an item by sending an email to planning@rochesterhills.org prior to the discussion on the agenda item. And just a reminder, it looks as if everyone is, but we're required to have the social distancing and everyone keeping their mask on the entire meeting. So I'd appreciate that. Ms. Gentry, will you take roll call, please? Here.
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 Here. Here.
She is excused. He is also excused. We have a quorum. We'll move on to approval of the minutes for the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting. Does anyone have any comments or corrections?
Chairperson Barnabic, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Okay. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Kalsunas, seconded by Mr. Hooper, for approval of the minutes from the March 16th, 2021 regular meeting. We'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. For communications tonight, we had the RCOC road report, 2 issues of planning and zoning news, and the Planning Commission did receive email communications sent to the Planning Department prior to tonight's meeting, so those were forwarded to us to review. I'll move on to public comment, which is for non-agenda items. And I do not have any speaker cards at this point. Ms. Gentry, do we have an email communication requesting public comment for non-agenda items? Ms. Roediger, do we have anyone have their hand raised on Zoom?
I do not see anyone on Zoom with their hand raised to speak about an item not on the agenda, no.
Okay. Well, then I will close the public comment. Move on to new business. Public hearing, a request for adoption of the 2022 through 2027 Capital Improvement Plan. Good evening, Ms. Doyle.
Good evening.
Hoyle, sorry.
That's okay. Good evening, Chairperson Barnabic and Planning Commission members. Thank you for having me tonight. For our 2022 to 2027 Capital Improvement Plan, as you can see, all our new and existing projects do cover every part of the city. We do have 17 new CIP applications to go over tonight, totaling $16.9 million. And I'll just get into it, and I'll pause after each project. If you have any questions, all the city staff is on Zoom to answer anything you might need. So first up is FA02N, Fire Station 1 restroom and locker room renovations, scheduled for 2022 for $390,000. FA15, Auburn Alley South parking lot at Eastern, scheduled for 2022 for $630,000. FA16, the Oakland County Sheriff Lobby Security Reconfiguration and the addition of a sensitive victims area for 2022 for $165,000. FA17, electric vehicle charging stations throughout the city, scheduled for 2023, $250,000. IS22, the mobile fire training simulator, for 2022 for $93,000. And on to road projects, MR21B is East Nawakwa Road Rehab, scheduled for 2027 for $781,050. MR61, Drexelgate Road Rehabilitation, for construction in 2024 for $3.5 million. MR63, Marketplace Circle Rehabilitation for 2027, $760,000. On to parks. PK01L is the Bloomer Park Brick House Sanitary Sewer Improvements in 2022 for $55,000. Oops, I'm sorry. Didn't leave any time for this. PK04H, the Spencer Park Entrance Pathway for 2022 for $171,000. PK05M, Borden Park Material Storage Building for 2022 for $171,000. And PK26, Cricket Pitch Development for 2022 for $1 million, but city share is to be determined on a private partnership. Actually, they do not know yet. The city was approached by a semi-professional cricket organization, and so they just wanted to put it in as a placeholder. They really haven't done any study yet. SW16 Stratford Knowles Sub number 3 and number 6 roadside and side yard culvert replacement for 2023 for $583,000. Under water and sewer is WS07B is booster station number 1, a permanent natural gas generator in 2022 for $50,000. WS39B, 2 valve turner replacements in 2022 for a total of $75,000. WS59, Auburn Road water main replacement, and this is the section from Rochester Road to Culbertson in 2022 for $3.4 million. And lastly, WS60, Great Oaks West, Long Meadows water main replacement for construction in 2025 for $4.8 million. And with that, we can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, if you have any questions, you can push your button as usual, except for Mr. Gaber, I will watch for your hand tonight.
I have a button.
Do you? Oh, you do, number 12, okay. I'm all set. All right, great. I do have one speaker's card for the CIP, Mr. Craig Lepansky.
Yes.
You did have a question on the CIP?
No, I think I marked down the wrong one. I want to speak to your Barnes project.
Oh, okay, I just went by the number. Okay,
Yeah.
then if you'll take your seat.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gaber.
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, those new projects that you went through, I mean, I don't know how many projects are in here total in the CIP, but they run from 22 through 27. It seemed like most of these new, what are they, 17 projects?
Correct.
Most of them are in the near future, like 22, a lot of them are 22, some are 23. So in other words, they're new projects coming online, but they're bumping a lot of the existing projects that are already in here. And I was wondering if you could comment on that, please, the
Actually,
rationale
you're
for that?
correct, and we did ask staff about that because a lot of the new projects did hit for 22, and they have prioritized the ones that they think were most necessary for 22 and have pushed back some of the ones that aren't as needed.
So from a procedural standpoint, I'm just kind of curious as to why those seem to be an urgent necessity as opposed to some of the other ones. Were these situations that just developed quickly that required capital improvements, or were they not noticed timely? Or I'm just trying to figure out why they weren't, noticed and put in the queue longer, a longer time ago than right now.
Great question. Actually, it's a little both. Some things just have come up. I'm trying to think, for example, some of the parks projects, for example, the brick house project, they were having some drain and sewer issues, so obviously it's quite necessary to expedite that instead of pushing it off, but it is an expensive project, so it had to go through the CIP process.
I see.
And it just, projects come up, and it's up to the departments to realign what's their priority for the years.
Okay. And then one specific question on the charging stations.
Yes,
I believe those were 22, if I'm not.
they're actually 23, but
23,
close
okay.
enough.
So that was $250,000 for the charging stations. I'm wondering, what that entails. How many charging stations? Are those all going to be on city-owned property?
And for that question, I will turn it over to Ms. Roediger.
Sure. This is a facilities project. Should I maybe promote
Promote Gary.
Mr. Gary Knotts and Mr. Scott Cope? And they should be joining us now via the Zoom meeting. And we cannot hear Gary. I see Mr. Cope. I'm not sure if Mr. Cope can speak. And we cannot hear Mr. Cope either, unfortunately. Let's see. Let's give our audio team a minute here to respond. But I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, Mr. Gaber, and I'll attempt to answer while we try to figure this out?
Yes. So basically, I'd like to know, how many charging stations is this for? Where are they going to be located? Is this going to be on city land or, spread out through other, publicly owned properties? Then my other question was, is there any grant money or other third-party money that can be leveraged toward the development of these charging stations as well?
Yes, well, the answer is at this point, we don't know the exact locations. The intent is on city properties, and we will absolutely look into any type of grant funding to match. I know there's a variety of sources out there. This was talked about as part of one of the recommendations for the transportation master plan, as you may recall. And we did do an initial poll of the Planning Commission and City Council, and it was strongly supported. And so in terms of looking forward to the future, it's something that we strongly wanted to start planning for. And so I think we basically put this in the CIP at this point to start planning for and to start asking some more of those questions as we move forward. But the intention is to, yes, do it on city properties and, of course, to investigate grants.
Do we have any idea as to how many charging stations $250,000 pays for?
Let me see. I'm getting text. My phone is, I'm wondering if they're answering me. Apparently, everyone else in the Zoom world can hear Scott and Gary, just not us here in the auditorium.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear Gary now. Look at that. He's right out of a Verizon commercial. All right.
I've been hitting every button on my screen, so they range anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 a piece. So depending on the adaptability of the chargers, we're just trying to be proactive where we could get anywhere from 15 to 25 of them, depending on locations, and they would be on city property. This is in the early staging, so there'd have to be some research done.
Great. Thank you. And then, yeah, I think that answered my questions. Thank you very much. Just one other comment. I just want to, commend city staff and the administration for putting this together. I mean, this is obviously a great planning tool that helps out the city immensely that we would have a hard time doing without. And I know it's a lot of work putting this information together, so I just wanted to thank the administration for having such a comprehensible, usable tool for the city.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Boyer.
Thank you, Chair Bernabic. I concur with Mr. Gaber. Thank you to staff for putting this all together and making it flow nicely. I just have a few questions. The Drexel Gate, there's the road and the pathway, and I know in the CIP they were like different years, and because they're going to be two big projects where you're ripping up, can they not be done at the same time so that people are only inconvenienced once for the path on Drexel Gate and the road on Drexel Gate?
Correct. Actually, I apologize. I'll have to look at that. They should be the same years.
Okay.
Yes, they should be 23, 24, 23 for the design and 2024 for the actual construction.
And then on the Crooks Road lighting, that says it goes from South Boulevard down to M59. Is that not the city of Troy?
I'm sorry, what were the boundaries?
For Crooks Road, from South Boulevard down to M59, it says?
No, M59 is north of south down there.
Oh, so, okay, I'm thinking of 75,
Yep.
right, gotcha, okay, thanks, got that, thanks for making that clear.
No problem.
And then the charging stations, you answered those. And then I see the Ruther lighting and the sidewalks, those were, what year were those? Because I didn't get the feeling that those were like now, I thought that those were going to be pushed out. I was just wondering if, because now that we've got the Auburn Road corridor done really nice, that if the Ruther lights and pathway could get done sooner than later.
Yes, actually, those were moved depending just because of the work with the safe route to schools. That project will be bumped forward as soon as everything is worked out between the city and them to get that project moving.
Great. All right, thank you, and that's all I had.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Is that you pushing it? Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. For those in the crowd and everybody online, the City of Rochester Hills and this Planning Commission were one of the first commissions, I believe, in the state to put together a CIP plan, which is what we're reviewing today. The CIP, what you see on here, is not go, build, run. It's a guidance for the council for future projects. It gives the chance for our staff, as well as regular citizens sitting on this commission, a chance to sort of say, hey, do we need this? Don't we need this? Some years were tough. Some years are easy, as you know, and we have pointed questions. But we also have planning commissioners in the meetings putting this together. So I'd like to thank the staff and my colleagues for putting all this together. I think it's a very interesting document to have around when people ask me myself what's happening what and what's happening when, and I could always refer to this. And again, this is not a for sure thing. It's guidance for the council. The council tends to do what they like with this guidance, but it's very well held to, I would say. So with that, I would like to move the motion in the packet.
Mr. Kalsunas, can you
Yes.
hold on one moment, please?
No problem.
This item requires a public hearing, and I do not have any speaker's card, but I am going to open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone that would like to speak on the CIP. And seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. I would like to move the motion in the packet that the City of Rochester Hills Planning Commission approves the capital improvement plan that has been proposed for the years 2022 to 2027. The Rochester Hills Planning Commission has determined the following. I have 7 whereases. And jumping to the bottom, resolved that the capital improvement plan presented for review on April 20th, 2021 is adopted by the Rochester Hills Planning Commission on April 20th, 2021, and be it further resolved that this plan should be published and attested to according to law.
Support.
Okay. And I too would like to thank you because the CIP is always well done, well prepared, and very much appreciated. Just to let you know, and I'm sure you know that, it is very much appreciated, the hard work that everyone puts into having this document put together.
Thank you, and thank you to all my fellow employees and Mr. Hooper and Mr. Weaver, who attended our meetings and did the ratings as well.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Mr. Kalsunas and seconded by Mr. Hooper that the Rochester Hills Planning Commission approves the capital improvement plan that has been proposed for the years 2022 to 2027. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, I will take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, I will move on to other new business. Public hearing and request for conditional use recommendation. City file number 20-023. Barnes Senior Living, a proposed 12-bed senior living facility on 2 acres located at 1841 Crooks Road between Avon and Hamlin, zoned R1, one-family residential, parcel number 15-20-428-003. Ligel Anthony, Grace Properties Group, is our applicant tonight. Will the applicant come to the table, front table, please? Good evening, and would you introduce yourself for the record, and then I will move on and let Ms. Kapelansky do the staff report, and we will return to you.
Yes. My name is Lijo Anthony, owner of Grace Properties.
Okay,
And I am George Reichert from Reichert Surveying.
Can they pull it closer?
yeah, it's sort of hard to
Yeah.
hear.
George Reichert from Reichert Surveying.
Okay, great. And do you have other representatives here with you tonight, or?
Yes, one is my wife and one, she works with me, Heather. They won't be speaking. So.
Oh, okay, thank you. Ms. Kapelansky, will you do the staff report, please?
Yes. The applicant is proposing to construct a single-story, 12-bed senior living facility. This is at 1841 Crooks. The parcel is zoned R1, one-family residential, and the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit, which is required for state-licensed residential facilities with 7 to 12 residents. The applicant has complied with all of the city conditions for a state-licensed residential facility of this size. Site plan approval and approval of the required tree removal permit have also been requested. It should also be noted that this property is part of the city's non-contiguous historic districts, and the Historic Districts Commission has reviewed the plans and found them to be in compliance with their requirements and granted the required certificate of appropriateness. The Planning Commission may want to inquire further regarding the intended use of the existing barn, which must be preserved, and should also consider adding a condition that the applicant be required to maintain the barn. A circular one-way drive is proposed and has been approved by the Road Commission for Oakland County and the city's engineering and fire departments. As I mentioned previously, a tree removal permit is also required. The rear of the property will remain largely unchanged. The planning review did note the need for a revised landscape plan complying with ordinance requirements, which has been submitted. And the Planning Commission may also want to consider requiring shrub plantings along the parking area near the north property line to screen headlights. With that, all reviews are recommending approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, would you like to move forward with the presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay. You can move forward.
So the 1841 project is, I have a similar businesses in Macomb County. I live in Rochester, Rochester Hills for about 10 and a half years. We cannot hear. I'm sorry. Oh, this way, okay. So I've been living in Rochester Hills about 10 and a half years now. By profession, me and my wife both are nurses, and we operate a few residential settings in Macomb. And a lot of families from Rochester reached out to us, and a lot of people actually stayed in my houses many years. Then I saw this property a couple of years ago, and I bought it. I researched it. I found out, I knew that it was a historic property, and last year I came for the public commission meeting. This was my intention. And I think this will be a wonderful idea because there is no similar property in the neighborhood. It's not a larger size. It's not a small size. And it has the adequate space for the residents. This is strictly for elderly, not for any disability, any traumatic brain injuries, or neither children. This is straight up for elderly citizens who cannot live by themselves. That's what I want to do.
Okay, so basically assisted living facility?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I think I will open up the public hearing first tonight for residents. I guess the question I had for you too was, have you talked to your neighbors recently?
Yes, I have a few of them.
Okay, and what questions were you getting?
A lot of the families had concerns about traffic on Crooks Road. A couple people mentioned about the property values. Some of them, they just don't want anything to the backyard. There are some trees, wildlife. So those are some questions I got.
Okay, thank you. I do have quite a few speakers cards tonight, so I will move to open the public hearing, and I will start with Craig Lepansky again, if you'll come up to the podium, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. My name's Craig Lepansky. I've been a resident of Christian Hills for about 12 years now. I have a really great concern that the approval of this will actually create life-threatening road conditions in already a very difficult area. Anyone who lives in Christian Hills knows when leaving Christian Hills on Breton, looking to your south, you have just about 3 to 4 seconds for oncoming traffic coming over that hill to make a decision. Traffic's moving about 35 miles an hour. We have large trucks, we have cars, and as I said, to go north or south on Crooks, just a few seconds. The site that we're talking about tonight, at the top of the hill, will limit line of sight going north or south on Crooks. There's a few signs. I heard the Road Commission has approved this site. There's 2 signs when traveling north on Crooks just after Hamlin. First is the warning of deer. This is something that we deal with daily. This particular area, very hazardous, limited line of sight. The second one, less than 50 yards away from the site that we're talking about tonight, it says hidden intersection. It's a sign already warning us that there's a hidden intersection up above as we're turning right, traveling north at 35 miles an hour. I didn't have a chance to look up the accidents that have already happened there. I've seen quite a few. But this proposed site would add to the level of danger for all drivers passing through this area, going in and out of the suggested site, as well as just people traveling the road. I really think we should take this into consideration. I feel approval of this site will certainly see people injured in more traffic accidents and possibly killed. We need to think about this. I've lived in the neighborhood for 12 years. A lot of my neighbors are on the Zoom right now. This is something we definitely don't want to see happen. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brenda Savage.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Christian Hills for 35 years now, and I have to ask consideration of the basis of the public hearing. Is it only to allow residents to express concerns and then proceed with a plan, or is it a serious consideration of what is presented before approval may or may not be granted for the plan that is proposed? The purchaser of the property obviously knew that it would need a rezoning for the increased density of residency on the property, and that is a great concern to us who live there. We are concerned about safety issues, but more than that, we're looking at the fact that this is going to be something that isn't really necessary in Rochester Hills. We have at least a dozen assisted living facilities in Rochester Hills, and even more in the near surrounding area in Rochester and Troy and Oakland Township. They are at approximately 70% capacity. There isn't a need for more beds. And I think that that's an important consideration. This is a licensed facility, which means that the people who are going to live there are needing care. It's not like my neighbors and I are getting a little older and decide we can't live alone. We need each other. It's people who actually need someone to look after them, make sure that they're taking their medications. We have concerns about noise. We have concerns about lighting. We have concerns that seniors may wander off the property and become injured. We have concerns that there will be increased traffic through the subdivision if we see a lot of difficulty on Crooks Road with the traffic influx in and out. For senior living, very often it is accompanied by many ambulances and fire trucks coming at all hours of the day and night, especially on weekends. There are many, many serious considerations and concerns, and I would say that some have suggested that we don't have a legal basis to deny, but I will say that judges are given equity of law to consider other things outside the specifics of the zoning. Even though it's a residential zoning, it is one family, and that would not be appropriate. You don't typically have 12 people of a similar age living in that residence. If they were to build a building that had 6 residents living in it, they wouldn't need special approval. And in fact, we have group homes in Christian Hills that do not exceed those requirements, and it is not a problem. So I would say that's a serious concern. Has the property been replatted to actually show that it's a single property that is 2 acres? Or is it still 2 separate plats of land, one of which belongs to Christian Hills and the other portion of which does not? There are many, many issues concerned here, but I think that it's appropriate to look at all of the concerns that are being presented and recognize that there is an opportunity to say no at this juncture for this plan. I think that, again, to realize a smaller building would not require anything of you. They could go fully ahead as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
The property could be developed for a single residence and sold at a very good price. Sorry about that. It wasn't me.
No, actually, that was me, accidentally. Okay, we will move on to our next speaker, Jackie Pollock.
My name is Jackie Pollock. I live in Riverside Highlands subdivision on Ludgate Lane, and I am totally against rezoning this parcel of land. In 1974, my family moved to a quiet area called Avon Township. We lived in a subdivision off of Walton. Within a few years, this area became the city of Rochester Hills. Walton Boulevard was widened and several commercial buildings were built. This area became very loud and had heavy traffic. So we decided this is not where we wanted to grow our family and for our children to live. So we looked around, found this beautiful subdivision called Riverside Highlands, which is a 1-block, 21-home, treed area. And it backed up to an historical home and barn. Just perfect. Now you're considering changing that with this large 6,826 square foot facility that is being called a 12-bed senior facility, but it's more than that. It's 12-bed and bath with a bedroom for staff, kitchen, office, conference room, laundry room, maintenance room, dining room, living room, with outside patios and porches on 1.9 acres of residential land. This is commercial. Someone is making money here. There are no other commercial sites between Hamlin and Avon. Everything is residential, R1. I'm wondering what happened to the adjacent smaller lot just north of the barn. There hasn't been a whole lot of talk about that. In November 2019, multiple lots were purchased by the new owner. What is planned for this additional lot? That concerns many of us. This large 1.9 acre lot and the smaller lot were previously zoned as part of the city's historical district. The Historic District Commission voted to change this. A few of us knew of residents who wanted to purchase this land to build a single-family home. They were told they couldn't because it was historical. When and why did this classification change? Why weren't nearby residents in Christian Hills and Riverside Highlands consulted? It would have been nice to know. It would have been nice if we could have had a say-so about it. But then it was changed to R1. But at least we thought, okay, we have a single family moving in. The new owner talked to a few residents nearby this proposal. The new owner was quoted as saying, this is his American dream. What about our American dream? There are several senior residents, like Brenda said, in Rochester Hills, nearby Auburn Hills, Rochester, and Shelby. Also, as the builder said, there is a Walnut Creek living facility in Macomb, which is owned by him. There are 6 individual homes built on this land for assisted living, board and care, and memory loss. There are individual residence homes. This is where he should have his American dream, not Rochester Hills.
Thank you. Glenn Moore.
Hi, how you doing? Glenn Moore, Christian Hills subdivision. Everything I'm about to say is rhetorical. If you want to comment on it afterwards, that's fine. 1841 Crooks is a mistake. Once you allow it, there's no going back. You can't revoke it. What are you going to do? Kick him out? Can't do it. He lets the barn go? Hey, too bad. I already got my change. How about the baby boomers? The baby boomers that this thing is designed for, they got a lifespan of about 15 more years. Then we're all going to be dead. What are you going to put in there? Homeless? You know? Let's see. It's a slippery slope. Once you allow one of these guys to go up, the whole town is fair game. The subdivision is a sanctuary from the pressures of everyday life. We like to go home, relax, not look at some commercial building staring you in the face, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning when you got shift change. Let's see, the commercial site in a residential sub along a busy road, you're advertising Rochester Hills is on its way down. Why are we allowing a communal living space being built in the middle of a senior citizen killing pandemic? Now, if I remember Ms. Whitmore, she is highly against people socializing. This is just a virus waiting to happen. Finally, you got lot 280 next door. They also purchased that one. They can build 6 beds there and not even look at you people. So now we don't have 12 beds, now we got 18 beds. Next, once you got those 18 beds going, I'm in the next lot. My house is paid for. It's nothing for me to go to and convert mine to an assisted living / disabled. So now you got 1, 2, 3 in a row, plus the one across the street in the corner. So you got 4 of them within 250 feet. And if you think I'm going to sit there and convert that thing and put big bucks in there to keep it looking brand new, it's going to be just like everybody else around here that's renting their house out. It's going downhill. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. John Lucas.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is John Lucas. I live in Riverside Highlands subdivision, which is really Ludgate Lane, which is the street immediately behind this proposed facility. I submitted a letter dated April 12th to the Planning Commission. I was just going to read it, but I think I'm just going to pull out some of the salient parts of it. I'm objecting based on the zoning ordinance itself, basically on the grounds of traffic safety and the orderly development of the city. Some of the speakers have already indicated the traffic situation on Crooks is very tenuous at best. There is a hill and there's limited sight distance going up and going down, and that's where they're proposing to put that facility. One of the speakers said it's 35 miles an hour there. Actually, it's very brief where it says 35 miles an hour, and then it goes to 45 miles an hour. Most people don't stop for 35 miles an hour. They just keep going. Some people go even faster than 45 miles an hour there. So the issue that I see is the traffic, not going north and south. The increase of traffic heading that direction is not going to be that significant. It's the other way. It's east and west. It's ingress and egress onto Crooks from this facility. The residents are there, but they're going to have family members. There's going to be medical personnel, vendors. Those people are going to be going there in and out constantly. That is going to propose a traffic facility danger that is just waiting to happen. I indicated that there was some drawings from the Planning Commission that I obtained, and they were dated April 12th of this year, and it indicated in notes 4 and 5, talking about the limited sight distance, and they indicate existing site conditions may require an engineering study to determine sight distance. So it's really hasn't been approved, in my opinion. It's still an issue that has to be resolved. So again, I looked at the zoning ordinance, and it said that a conditional use shall be denied where the purpose will, quote, will be injurious to the public health, safety, welfare, or orderly development of the city. I don't think this facility is really consistent with the public health, safety, or welfare. The traffic situation is really not going to be corrected by having this horseshoe in and out driveway. Moreover, there used to be a single-family home there, so that would be the orderly development of the city, would be to have a single-family home, not a 12-unit group home. And I'm concerned about what can happen on the north side of the barn as well. We'd like to know what his plans are, because if he can't put a 6-unit in there, then, like the other speakers said, there would be 18 units. So I'm objecting for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura Douglas.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Laura Douglas. I live at 2131 South Breton, where our property kind of comes to a point at the very back of the lot. We spoke with the owner probably a couple weeks back when he stopped by our home. I'm kind of on the fence with this whole development. The neighbors have brought up very valid points regarding the lot in Christian Hills. So that has definitely become a concern. A couple of things I wanted to address. When we talked to the owner, he spoke about plans for the barn, which it would be interesting to know when he plans on completing that, because that's going to need a lot of work to restore a barn. He had talked about leveling the ground behind it, and what we thought that meant is he would level to the ground to the stable part where the stalls were behind it. But I'm not sure if the historical committee knows that, because then you're kind of ruining the whole historical aspect of the barn. And you can't just fill in the foundation, because then what's going to happen to the top? So that was concerned. Not quite sure what's happening there. If it were to go forward, we did speak with him about landscaping in the back. Preferably, I looked at the plans, you can't really tell what's going to happen in that back corner. I mean, right now when it leafs out, we can't see over there at all. We can't even see the barn. If this building goes up, large evergreens would be nice. Something that's not deciduous would be great. We also talked to him about the fencing. The fencing has been up for a number of years since Helen O'Neill lived there. I'm surprised it's as upright as it is. We would like to see the fencing replaced with something much more aesthetically pleasing, sturdy, as far, for property values for everyone along that property line. And I think that is about here. My parents, everyone's talking about how long they lived there. My parents bought their house there in 1970. I am currently living there. They bought that land because of the barn and the horses. So I do have a history there. I'd like to see some of it maintained. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Peltzer.
Hi, my name is Mike Pelzer. I live over in Riverside Highlands and have been a resident there for a little over 12 years. I look around, see a lot of my neighbors and friends here. And trust me, I do believe in the American dream, but rather than regurgitate everything that's been said so far in regards to traffic safety on crooks and things of that nature, why not just build a regular house and then divvy it up for residents that way? What happens if this company should go under? Now we're stuck with a hulking commercial building sitting over there on Crooks Road, which means another commercial operation is going to move in there. The other thing is that recently the residents of Riverside Highlands were tasked with an environmental issue in regards to Phragmites because of runoff. Has there been an environmental study done on this property, what it's going to do to the rest of the neighborhood, what situations could arise from it and such? The other thing is the barn. What happens if that's accidentally damaged when a construction vehicle comes in to build this new facility? What sort of precautions are going to be taken to make sure that that remains protected? Other than that, that's really about it. I mean, I'm concerned about the safety of the residents of the facility as well as my neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gentry, do I have any other speaker cards for the Barnes Senior Living Development? We have one coming forward, okay. And do I have any new email communications? Okay, so you got one that came in. Is it short enough to read, or does it need, it is? Okay, will you please do that then? We'll count it as a speaker. You can move forward and read that email that just came in then. Thank you. And I do have one more speaker card for John Rowland.
Thank you. I'm John Rowland. We've lived in Christian Hills for 52 years, and I just have some questions for the developer. I noted that it was mentioned to be assisted living. My first question is, could it elevate to memory care and/or the next level of nursing home? Are those two additional levels of care that this facility could be involved with? And then my next question is, because of healthcare issues that many people are looking at nowadays, what level of Medicare and/or Medicaid would this facility participate in? And I'd like the developer to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Salvsey?
Thank you. My name is Scott Salzay. I reside at 1870 Ludgate Lane. I had the opportunity to meet the owner as he and his wife came to my residence in a windy rainstorm to discuss their ideas and show me some architectural drawings. I've been involved in the medical, health, safety, environmental, technical arenas for over 30 years. My diverse background has consisted of firefighting, paramedics, EMS, OSHA, my OSHA safety consultant, and director. I'm also a devoted husband and father. In 2009, I received an appointment from Governor Jennifer Granholm to take a board position on the Department of Energy, Labor and Economic Growth Bureau of Commercial Services. In that time, I saw many places, like the one we're discussing this evening, go into operation. While always in operation in the guise of a group home, they in time operated under very different circumstances. They encountered high employee turnover and in many cases, a wide range of code violations. We do not really need this in our backyards. I've given it a lot of thought. There are plenty of other locations in other communities where such a facility could do much more and be much more welcome. This evening, before attending this hearing, I visited the website A Place for Mom, where there are currently 207 residential personal care homes in and near Rochester Hills. Most of them are not to capacity. They include Elite Alternatives, Bridgeway Home, Meta Lodge, and Somerset House, just to name a few. When there are so many group home settings in the area, we are not to the capacity. It makes no sense to me why we're even looking at this. Christian Hills and Riverside Highlands are wonderful neighborhoods. We moved here specifically to be in a family-oriented area free of businesses to enjoy our large yards and community spirit. A 12-bed senior facility, or whatever you change it to, will impede on the values that we currently enjoy. The number of beds for this proposed facility indicates the architect's drawings makes it appear that it's a business, but may not be in the future. I encourage you to be courageous and not allow for this proposal to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roediger, is there anyone that has their hand raised in Zoom?
We did, but not any longer. So if there's anyone on the Zoom call that would like to speak, I do see a couple now, so let me go ahead. I'm going to allow you to speak, and let me make sure I have the settings all proper here for a moment. And our first speaker is Avalon, and it looks like they are muted.
Okay, hi, this is Paige Avalon.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. We sent in our questions and concerns via email to theplanning.org. I'm just curious if you have them there.
Yes, planning commissioners did receive emails sent to the planning
because
department
we could
prior
not hear
to.
when someone read.
So is this something you just recently sent in, or is this something you sent in last week?
I sent it in today.
Oh, today.
Yes, we received a number of emails between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., and we sent a series of, I think, 8 emails to all the planning commissioners before this meeting. So we did forward every email that was received to the planning department, yes.
Okay. Then could I go through a few of the things that I had on mine right now?
Yes, you absolutely can. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. I'm just going to read this. Due to the current COVID restrictions, we'd like to submit questions by email for tonight's meeting concerning the proposed Barnes Senior Living Facility. Christian Hills is a single-family residential subdivision with approximately 394 homes. Christian Hills already has 3 group homes, none of which in any way are comparable to this proposal. They do not have multi-space parking, a 12-foot by 7-foot illuminated sign, or 7,000 square feet dwellings. Existing facilities are located on Crooks Road and Hampstead Lane within our subdivision. The proposed building certainly does not meet the criteria of the existing senior living sites in our subdivision that are actually single-family homes. The proposed business will create traffic difficulties due to the elevation and blind spot issues on Crooks Road. This will only add to the already existing congestion. The required illumination for this project will not be in line with other residential properties, such as parking lot lamp posts, 12-by-7 sign, headlights due to emergency vehicles. Was this project approved prior to Grace Properties purchase? Why were plans from the previous owner declined on several occasions from improving and developing the property? Did Grace Properties discuss the historical significance of the property prior to their purchase? And was their proposed use of this property disclosed at the time of purchase? It would seem counterproductive to purchase a plot of land for a specific purpose without first having, quote, purpose approved. We've lived in Christian Hills for 25 years. We moved here because of the residential nature and large treed lots. This project is not conducive to our existing neighborhood. This will drive down property values and make the surrounding houses undesirable. Certainly, City Hall can find other revenue streams. We would appreciate responses to these questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a Jim Olensky. I'm going to butcher it, so we'll let.
Hi, it's Oleg Sinski. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jim Oleksinski. I'm in Christian Hills, 1809 Northumberland. And all the great speakers that came before me basically stole my thunder, but I just wanted to lend my vocal support. I also sent an email in last Friday. I went through the packet of information you had on your website. I didn't see mine included in that with others. But, you know, just to summarize, you know, it's just a bad location for this project from a traffic standpoint, a safety standpoint, the fact that it's all residential on both sides of the street, from Avon to Hamlin. And, you know, you also have Heritage Oak subdivision, which is, you know, right there between Hamlin and where this new complex, proposed complex would go, on top of a hill. And, you know, the limited visibility with the hills, with the hill right there. There are better locations within Rochester and Rochester Hills community to build this project. I had an opportunity to look at the plans today, and you know, me, I'm not an expert, but it doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing and conducive for what is already there in the area. So I would strongly urge that, at the very least, to take a second look at this whole project. I just found out about this 2 weeks ago. There's been a lot of conversation on nextdoor.com, and that's basically, you know, my first notice, not to mention the big white sign that just popped up within the last week and a half. So thank you for your time, and I urge rejecting this these requests to rezone and cut the trees down and build this project.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Kim Bailiff.
Hi, I was going to say a lot of the things that other people have said. I live on Breton Drive South as well, at 2101, and we've been there for 20 years. And when I first heard about the project, I actually thought it sounded really lovely. Yes, there are a lot of other facilities in the area, but they're not quiet and idyllic and residential. And I think that Mr. Anthony deserves some respect. He has a servant's heart. I believe he's a nurse, if I did my research properly, and that his other facilities have excellent reviews. So I just want to say that I think there's a lot of frustration, a lot of people that are upset, but I just want to make sure that we put that frustration where that frustration is due. And I would like to first call out the Historical Society. Shame on the Historical Society, because that piece of property was purchased by a lovely couple with the intent of fixing up that blue historical home that was there for a very long time, and the Historical Society blocked them at every curve. Talk about an American dream being crushed. So I would like to say publicly, shame on our Historical Society for complete and utter overreach. And if I were going to put something in that property, I would say only under the condition that all ties with the Historical Society be cut. So if that had happened, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And instead we had to look at an eyesore for years and years and years until it finally fell apart. And so here we are. Are you happy now? Okay, so I'm going to put my animosity on the Historical Society. And then secondly, I just want to call out that everybody in Rochester Hills is a little bit touchy and a little bit untrusting right now with the city of Rochester Hills, because we have had so many things sprung on us by the city, and they do these public hearings like, oh, let's hear what everybody has to say. But it's a bunch of crap, because they're going to go ahead and do whatever they want to do anyway, just like that, like Premier Academy or whatever that, child care facility, kitty corner to Adams, and everybody said, don't do it, don't do it. It's a traffic problem, it's a traffic problem, and oh, but we want to hear from the citizens. But no, you didn't. You went and did it anyway. So again, I just want to say, God bless you to Mr. Anthony. It's a beautiful idea. It would be a place that I would love to have available for my parents, but there's a lot of baggage that goes along with it, and I just want to make sure that we put the blame where the blame is due. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Sherry Wynn Purdue.
Hi, thank you. Like many others, the things that I had articulated in my email have already been said, but I think it's important that with numbers, you hear how the community feels. And again, this isn't personal, but it's about a neighborhood. There's plenty of commercial land available in Rochester Hills to build projects like these, but they purchased something in a residential neighborhood. And that's very important. The neighborhood, the two adjacent neighborhoods, one of them has been here since the 1950s. And I believe that the owners deserve the expectation that the area would remain residential, and we've been given no reason to believe that something has changed that would require a change in the way that this land is used. The target location puts it right in the backyard of two sets of neighbors. And again, if we were struggling, if there weren't places for people to go, we might be inclined to think about this differently. But it's so important that you remember that there are zoning regulations for a reason, and we've been given absolutely no reason to believe that there should be a change in the zoning of this property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. At this time, I do not see any other hands raised on our Zoom call.
Excuse me, can I just make a
point. Everyone asked what is
No, you can't just,
on the north side of the barn. We never got an answer from the developer.
we haven't answered any of the questions yet. We're going to do that all together after everyone's had the opportunity to speak and correct, yeah. Okay, so we have no one else waiting on Zoom, so I will close the public hearing. There were a lot of questions asked, and I think before I ask staff to contribute on this, I'm going to ask you just some basic questions that were asked. So, how many employees will you have in this facility at all times, and what hours are shift change?
So the goal is to have 2 employees at a time during a shift, which the goal is to have 2 employees at a time, which they will work 12-hour shifts, which is going to be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Now, some of my properties in Macomb has a couple who lives on site. So that's actually ultimately if I get the right people to work.
Mm-hmm.
If they do live on site, then they won't be driving, in and out per shift.
So you plan on this definitely, or is this something you are considering?
That is actually my plan because I have to find the right staff. It will take some time to get them, but I usually do. So otherwise, regardless, there will be 2 people, staff members, working at the property.
Okay, now, I think as part of the staff report and the material handed in by you, the applicant, you stated that you would have 8 employees. Can you explain that, please?
That's just a total capacity of 8.
Okay.
They just don't work, 8 people don't work at the same time. Because everybody can work only 40 hours a week, so you need more staff to work to cover throughout the week or the month.
But you would have 2 employees, I'm assuming, for 12 hours of care for residents. You also will have someone cooking?
They do the cooking. Staff is actually, midnight people prep for the breakfast and the main lunch and all that. And they are responsible for cooking too.
And cleaning?
Yes, we do have a housekeeper comes in once a week.
Okay.
That includes in that 8 employees total.
Okay, so you're telling me that you're going to have 2 employees per each 12-hour shift. So that would be the cars coming in the morning?
6:30 or some in the morning, and they leave after 7 o'clock in the evening.
Okay. There were quite a few people that expressed concerns about the barn, when you planned on painting it, how you planned on upkeeping it, when you would do that, so if you'll explain that.
During the Historic Commission, they asked me the same thing. That barn is in a very, very bad shape, including the roof, interior, the subfloors are all gone, windows are in bad shape. It takes a lot of money. I've been reaching out to a lot of grants, that is actually available for historic properties. I do have some links. When I get the grant, I am expecting to do a complete renovation. During the construction, I want to do the exterior, fix up so there is no more water getting into the barn. That I'm going to do during the construction of this property. Eventually, I want to use it as a library for the residents who live on site, and if their family visits, or somebody visits on the weekend, they want to have a coffee there. It's a very nice barn. There is 2 stories. Obviously, they cannot go upstairs, but there is enough room on the first floor. If we make it into a library and have a place for them to sit and read or have a family chat, that would be a great idea for me.
Okay, so you are saying that the outside of the barn, as far as water and painting, will be done at the same time the facility's being built?
Yes, I already spoke with the builder. He said he will do that for me. It's just that complete renovation costs a lot of money. I'm already taking an extensive amount of loan. If I can plug it in, I will. But the builder was kind enough to help me out with the exterior.
Okay, and this is a small facility. It only holds 12, and you had said it is for assisted living. And there was a question in regard to, well, will it always be that? Can it turn into nursing or memory care?
So it cannot be turning into a nursing home. That's a Medicare affiliated building. It has to have its own square feet, number of residents and beds. This is only a 12-bed facility licensed by state of Michigan. And it cannot be, now memory care is a glorified term that in the last 5 years people has been using. I don't exactly, even though I'm a nurse, I just don't understand what is memory care. People with, elderly in the 80s, they have memory loss. Care for those memory loss, if it is called as a memory care, then I call it as a memory care. Alzheimer's and dementia, a lot of our citizens has those. They just don't, just because they have dementia doesn't mean that they have to be secured in a memory care unit, locked down. No, that's not my plan. I thoroughly assess the people who comes in. If they are people who anytime they try to look for a door, I do not admit them. I want to make sure that everybody in the facility get along well, and our 2 staff members can handle them at all times.
Okay, because actually there was a concern that a resident could wander off into the road. So what safety procedures do you plan on having in place? Because you do only have 2 employees for 12 residents.
The front and the back door, the main entrances, front and back, will be alarmed and secured at all times. There is IT companies that will be working with, you have to enter, like you put a code in or something to enter after hours, or even during hours, depends on the situation.
So you do have patios. So I'm assuming in the nice weather, employees would be taking residents out to enjoy the weather in the patio. And I'm assuming not everyone would be in a wheelchair, so everyone would be brought out together in one group. And, I mean, if there is a concern, if you have 6 or 8 residents on a patio, there could be an opportunity for someone to wander off if someone doesn't have their eyes on them continually.
Absolutely. So the patio is mainly for people to have a nice visit with the family. And sometimes we do serve evening coffee or dinner outside. If it is a barbecue or something like that, we do that.
Mm-hmm.
We have an activity director, especially Heather who sits there. She's a social worker. She comes in once or twice a month. She wants to engage with the residents. If the weather is outside, I think the patio would be a great place for them to sit outside and enjoy the weather and the backyard. But it will be supervised at all times.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think I will ask staff, I'm sure you've been taking notes of questions, and I hit some of them, but Ms. Kapolansky, will you explain for the public a conditional use? I mean, this is a facility being proposed in residential, and it does require a conditional use. It's not permitted by right. So if you'll explain that a little bit.
Sure. And I did write down a couple of speakers did mention rezoning. So I want to clarify first and foremost that this property is not proposed for rezoning, that the use that's proposed is a use that is permitted as a conditional use, as Chair Bernabic said, in single-family residential districts, and that's in all single-family residential districts. Any state licensed residential facility for 7 to 12 residents, subject to a couple conditions listed on our ordinance, is a conditional use. And that's required by state law that we accommodate that request for these types of facilities in residential neighborhoods. Now, a conditional use means that this is a discretionary decision by the Planning Commission and the City Council. The Planning Commission would make a recommendation on the conditional use permit that's requested this evening. And then that recommendation would be forwarded to the City Council for ultimate approval or denial. There are a number of standards that are outlined in the zoning ordinance that the Planning Commission and the City Council consider when deciding whether or not to grant a conditional use permit. A lot of those standards do have to do with the fact of whether or not there will be adverse impacts such as additional lighting spilling onto adjacent properties, for example. If the use would require a lot of tree removals or things like that. It's looking at impacts to the adjacent residences, whether the appropriate screening has been provided. So those are the sorts of things that the Planning Commission and the council would consider as part of their conditional use recommendation. The Planning Commission and the council are permitted to attach conditions to their recommendations and approvals, if the council should choose to approve this, of the conditional use permit. And oftentimes they do. If you want me to go further, I can go on, but I hope that provides a clear picture of what a conditional use is.
Okay, thank you. I guess there were a lot of concerns about traffic, but having the two employees on two different shifts and social workers, I mean,
So, Chair Bernabik, we do have our engineering staff here
Okay,
on Zoom.
great.
So I'm going to promote them to panelists right now so they can address the traffic or any other engineering comments that you would like to address.
Okay, absolutely.
Keith Depp and Paul Davis. Being promoted. Do have both Keith and Paul are shown on my screen. I think I just need the cable to change their screen so you can see them. Can you hear us, Paul and Keith?
Can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. There we are. We have Keith Depp and Paul Davis, so they are here to answer the traffic and engineering comments.
You want to go ahead, Keith?
Okay. We heard a lot of questions, I think, about the existing and concerns about the proposed crashes. We looked into the crash data from 2016 to 2020. There were 7 accidents in that time frame. 2 were from deer accidents and 5 were from property damage or minor injuries from rear end accidents. These types of levels of accidents are very low, and we also considered the volume of traffic generated from this site is minimal. As Lijo alluded to, the residents aren't leaving the site. The 2 staff members are there for 12 hours at a time. That's even the residents taking their family members on visits or off to eat. That's beyond peak hours normally, because they're at work. We also had this plan go through the road commission, and their traffic safety analysis program and review of this site plan indicated that no major road improvements like a passing lane or cutting down that hill is required. We also had the sight lines indicated on the plans, and trees were removed to open up this area to clear some more sight distance lines. The hill that we're speaking of has about 100-foot level area at the top of it, so that there is adequate sight distance, and that is why we had the developer put in a one-way driveway. That will eliminate the left turns out of the site at that north driveway, and adequate sight distance was saw with the review and can be seen on the plans. The developer was asked to reconfigure the driveways, even though it wasn't a requirement or warranted through the county or the city. With that would eliminate the site basically, and wasn't workable for the fire department. So the city did not further pursue a passing lane or reconsolidating the driveways. I think that's about covers it. Paul, do you have anything else?
One thing I would add is, if this property is 1.9 acres, and it probably, although it could have been rebuilt with one home, it may have had the option to have additional homes. So I would be careful in saying increased traffic due to this development. I think this development is unique in that, although it may have more people, they may not necessarily be drivers. And if we had additional homes in there, the trips from just a few more residential type homes might exceed what is being proposed in this plan from a traffic standpoint. I think Keith addressed the sightline conditions. That is very important. I know the Road Commission looked at that and they take that seriously, and they've found it acceptable in this location.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a very valid point about a single-family home versus this with new employees, so thank you for bringing that up from a traffic engineer standpoint. And thank you, Keith. You did a very good job of explaining and going over everything. A couple residents brought up the additional lot.
So I would defer to the applicant on that question. We don't have any plans in for that lot presently.
There are no plans right now currently, okay.
So the applicant, though I do believe does own that lot, so they might be able to provide some additional insight.
Okay.
When I purchased the property, I only wanted to purchase the one with the barn, which is the 1.9 acres.
Okay.
But the seller wouldn't sell it. And he wanted to sell it as complete, the whole 2 lots. So that's why it was included in the sale. I don't have any plans at this time. And I don't know if I have any plans over the future, because I'm trying to even get a loan for this one property. It's very hard.
Please don't yell comments out. Thank you very much. There is no plans, but it probably is a true fact that there could be on the other lot 6 residents, right, without having to come for approval?
So state licensed residential facilities for 6 or fewer residents are a permitted use in all residential districts. So
Okay.
they would go to the building department for building permits, but would not appear before the commission.
Okay. Thank you for verifying that. And I don't know that we can answer the question here tonight because comment was made about someone else another couple that moved to purchase, and the Historic Commission denied that, which I'm not clear on what's going on with that. I don't have any knowledge.
No, and this particular project came before the HDC, the Historic District Commission, recently. They were happy with the plans that were proposed. Prior to this, there was, and several people mentioned, there was a house on the property. And what's called a notice to proceed to demolish the house was granted by the Historic District Commission a couple years ago.
Okay, so there was, I think someone mentioned another offer to purchase, and I don't know why it was denied, and I don't know that we would have that information here tonight anyway, but...
And the Historic District Commission would not approve or deny offers to purchase. They would just review the site layout and specifically the architecture of any proposed homes or any structure that was proposed on the property. So there was no other formal request brought before the Historic District Commission for that type of approval.
Okay, thank you for the clarity on that. Please do not yell questions out. Thank you. I think we have tried to ask every question and take note of what residents have brought up. Is staff or the applicant, is there something you would like to add, or is there something I might have missed?
So I had a couple things, Chair Bernabic. There was one resident who mentioned the fencing in the rear of the property, and I know that the applicant has spoken to that resident directly about potentially replacing that. So they might want to chime in on that, and I believe she also mentioned some landscaping questions as well. There are some tree replacement plantings going in the rear of the site, but I'm sure we could work with, if the applicant was amenable, work with the resident to change some of those to evergreens or to work on shifting the locations, as we can, to provide additional screening. There was the question about the environmental study as well. So I did have the chance to check with the building department on that as part of some previous emails that came through on this. That is not something that the city would review for this particular site. If a property purchaser wanted to go ahead and get an environmental study of the property, that would be at their own discretion. And then there was also the mention of the conditional use sign, and I did just want to clarify that that sign is required by the ordinance and was up the required 15 days prior to tonight's public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything further to comment on at this point before I move into Commissioner speaking?
Yes, I did talk to the neighbor about the fencing. The fencing is in a bad shape at some areas. We will be replacing or repairing the fencing that actually will look nice.
Okay.
And I want to paint it like white so it matches the building.
So you're replacing part of that fencing?
Yes.
Correct, okay. And landscaping, as far as further landscaping and working with the resident?
There were some dead trees in the back. We will be replacing that. And obviously, the whole, you can see in the plan itself, there are some tree removals required, but we are also replacing about 33 trees that is required by the city. We are not changing a lot in the back because it is not touching, and it is actually, there is a good lawn, and I cut the grass myself. Whatever we can do as far as to make it nice, we will do it.
Okay. Ms. Kapelanski, you had brought up additional landscaping to shield lights earlier.
Yeah, so there's a couple areas right here. I know that the applicant owns that adjacent property, but there could be some headlight spillover from people that pull into there, so it might be a good idea to have some shrubs just put in there. As far as the headlight spillover on the adjacent property, if there could be, a shrub or two, I know this is the walkway, but perhaps right here, a shrub or two, just to catch any headlight spillover from this parking space here onto this adjacent property. So maybe a shrub or two here.
Okay, and the applicant does agree to?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I am at this point going to move on to, I'm sorry you've had the opportunity to speak, and to my knowledge, we've answered every question. You're saying we did not. Okay, I can't have people yelling out. I do understand your concerns. We are all residents of the city, and I cannot have someone yelling comments out. So please stop yelling comments out. Just stop. You are really out of order now. I have been very respectful, asking you nicely, so I would appreciate the same respect that you will stop yelling your comments out. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Hooper.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernavik. Yeah, just a few clarifications, I guess, on additional questions. I guess on development, I guess around the barn, question was raised. I guess just want to make sure it's clear. There will be grading work done on the north side and the east side of the barn for the installation of the storm sewer system. So that is the extent of the development that's shown on the plans that we have right now?
Yes.
Okay. So just so everybody's aware that there will be grading work probably within 7,500 feet around the barn, the north and east side of the barn. Other than that, it looks like the easterly 100 feet, 125 feet will remain undisturbed except for new tree plantings. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Now, as far as traffic concerns go, was there, I guess maybe engineering can weigh in on this, but daily trip generations for the proposed use, 2 employees and then 12 residents, do we have a number? Was it supplied at all, or does engineering have an idea or an opinion? I guess that's number one. And then along with that, same question two would be your normal, according to ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineering, what's the normal trip generation for a single-family home, I guess? Those 2 questions.
I don't have the exact numbers, but we did look at MDOT guidelines for the traffic generation for this site and road commissions, and it didn't meet they have graphs, and we can produce that if you'd like, but I do know that it did not meet those volume requirements.
I was just trying to get an idea of numbers. I mean, I can hazard a guess from my experience, but I'd rather have the experts weigh in on that versus me.
Greg, I'll say, ITE does have some guidelines for trip generations from residential homes. I know past studies have shown that Rochester Hills is generally higher than that. The figure I recall is 13 to 14 trips per household per day.
Okay, so 13, 14 per home, and then for this site with 2 employees and with a dozen potential residents that, I guess it's an 8-car parking lot potentially is what it's being proposed to be developed. What's engineering's take on an average ADT for something like this type development?
Keith, why don't you answer that one?
We can't hear anything.
You're muted.
Okay. I'm looking it up now. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Well, when you get a chance, then you can get way in on that. I guess while we're moving along, I guess for planning, being
I guess
zoned.
the one thing I did look at, President Hooper, I can find here is we looked into the yields, the crash rates per million vehicles or per million vehicle miles. And for crooks between Green Ridge Road, Breton Drive to Bonnie Bray Street, there were 0.94 crashes per million vehicle miles. And the Michigan City and County roads is 3.74 crashes per million vehicle miles. So that's much lower than what would be required for some type of road improvement here.
Okay. Did the developer have any traffic engineering consultant brought on for this at all, or a review or analysis or anything?
Yes, I did consult with HRC, and we do have some reports if you'd like those.
Okay, just trying to get an idea what there's an opinion on the ADT compared to the development as residential. I guess for planning, since it's zoned R1, potentially how many single-family homes could reasonably be placed in this property. So we have,
So you could definitely, Commissioner Hooper, split the property and fit 2 homes. I'd have to look at it to get the frontage on it to see if you could get 3 in there. It'd be a little bit hard, I think, to have like a double-loaded street on there, just in terms of the width, but we would definitely be looking at 2 or 3 lots.
all right. So I guess short of having an answer, or I guess an opinion on the traffic development as proposed, 2 homes, we're going to generate 26 to 28 trips per day versus the proposed development with 2 employees and 8-car parking lot. I guess looking at it just from the bird's eye view, I guess it would appear to be there would be fewer traffic development, fewer traffic cycles done on a daily basis with the proposed development as potentially for a 2-home site redevelopment.
No yelling,
get into
comments
debate.
out.
You know, it just doesn't happen here in Rochester Hills. We got to, everybody's got to be professional with each other, and if we're just going to be debate like this, there's no sense having a meeting, because people are just going to go back and forth. So we want to take the questions, get the answers, and provide information back, and not have this type thing, you know. So, Chairperson, I guess I'm going to yield our time at this point.
Actually, you need to stop yelling comments out, otherwise I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You're definitely out of order. Okay, Mr. Anthony, with the 12 residents you'll have there for assisted living, will any of them be able to independently drive?
No.
So you would just have employees plus visitors to
Yes.
those residents?
We have employees, and most of our visitors do come in on the weekend because they do work. And some of the spouses, you know, they want to see their husband or wife. They usually pick the time between 11 to 4 because they want to join the lunch and they don't want to be in the traffic. And they want to get home before it darkens up. I have a doctor who comes in once a month. That's per Medicare rule because they get paid through Medicare for the doctors. The rest of it is just either video calls or just phone calls. And we may have a supplier comes in twice a month. That's a delivery. That's all you're going to see. And it's going to be me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gaber.
Thank you. I just had a few follow-up questions and some of the issues and matters that were raised. In terms of the site distance lines, if I look at the site plan essentially with those triangles, can I accurately assume that all of the trees that are presently, I believe in the right-of-way between the road surface and the bike path that would lie in that area are going to be removed?
Everything that's inside the triangles.
Everything that's inside the triangles. So you might have some shrubs, but nothing that interferes with sight distance within that area.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. A couple other questions. You know, I know there were questions raised about, you know, the market demand for this site. Frankly, I think that is an applicant or a developer's prerogative to make that determination, because I tend to believe that if you're going to put your time, your sweat equity, and your money in the project, that you're going to do the best to guarantee their success. And if you didn't do your market analysis, you wouldn't be this far in requesting this. So, well, I don't believe that is a proper line of inquiry. There was a question about what type of resident you're going to have, what level of financial ability is there going to be relative to their eligibility and the level of Medicaid and Medicare. Can you answer that, please?
Yes. We don't take Medicaid or Medicare. Medicare does not cover this kind of cost. Medicaid does, but Medicaid only pays about $800 a month, and we are only private pay.
which
Okay.
roughly estimate about $4,000 a month.
About $4,000 a month?
About, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. So we answered that. Talked about the parcel lights. What about, we talked about the fence at the rear. You know, in terms of landscaping, we just talked loosely about, you know, replacing trees with the tree replacements that are required under the ordinance. The one lady asked about, you know, are you going to put any evergreens in near the, you know, back property line to screen, you know, any of those neighbors back there? Can you be a little more specific on what your intent is, and if you'd be willing to entertain that as a condition of approval?
If it is required, as far as removing the dead trees, I can replace those. I think I do have the landscaper, my the architect, Mark on Zoom, if he's able to come on.
What is his name?
Mark?
Sandberg?
Yes.
I'm promoting him to panelist. And so as soon as he unmutes himself and starts his video, he should be able.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so as Lijo mentioned before, there are over 30 tree replacements proposed. And these would be 2-inch caliper trees, which are usually about 14 feet height when they're installed and planted. And right now along the back property line, I have proposed a mixture of about 20 different native trees, including oaks, maples, beech, and hazelnut, and hickory. But all of these trees, there's one white pine as well, but any of these trees could be replaced with evergreens if that is something that is desired. Certainly would be applicable to the tree replacement requirement.
Do we, excuse me, do we have a plan that shows this, what Mark is recommending?
Yes, these would be
I mean, it's not the tree plan, is it?
Yeah, it's called the landscape plan, so it's on the screen right now, Commissioner Gaber, but it's a little bit hard to see with the lightness that ends up happening. But right, all in here, these are all replacement plantings, here, 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 here. There's the white pine he was talking about. And this is included in the packet as well, as it's labeled as the landscape plan, here, here, here. So my suggestion was that the applicant, and I think they're saying that they would be willing to consider swapping out some of these deciduous for evergreens and maybe, you know, locating them purposefully to provide additional screening where they can fit.
Exactly, so that the neighbors can benefit from that. Okay, that makes sense. And I assume the applicant has no issue with that?
Yes, no problem.
Okay. And if we needed a few extra, what if we needed a few extra trees for proper screening? Would you have any problem with that, with evergreens?
No, we can do that.
Okay. Let's see. Parcel north. And I assume you wouldn't have any problems with the condition about having an obligation imposed to basically, you know, first of all, restore the barn, and then secondly, maintain it in good operating condition?
I don't have any opposition to that. Like I said before, I will do everything for the exterior, and once I receive some sort of grant, I want to do a full remodel of the barn, so it will be maintained forever.
Gotcha. Let's see, answered that. What about lighting? We talked about shielding headlights a little bit. I think that, you know, it seems like that would require some type of analysis as to where the headlights, you know, shine into neighboring properties and neighboring houses in particular, because it seems like that's what we want to avoid to the extent we can. And I don't know what the answer is to that. I know, Ms. Kapelinski, you had a couple of suggestions, but it seems to me that that would be, you know, proper grounds for a condition as well.
Yeah, I
Because if
would.
you live next to there, you certainly wouldn't want headlights shining into your house, you know,
Right.
from your neighbor's development.
Yep, I think that would be a great idea for a condition, and what we do, for example, along the roadways, is require a hedgerow.
Yep,
So a hedgerow, I think, would be an appropriate thing to require.
okay. And then what about, if you could, question for the applicant, could you briefly explain what the lighting is on the site? Because I know there were a couple of questions about that and how that would be seen from, you know, what type of lighting you're using, what type of color, lumens, and how that would be viewed from adjacent properties?
As far as I know, there is no exterior lighting or lighting poles. The light wattage was submitted with the plans. Everything is actually accommodated with the residential plan lighting. There is no extra bright. None of them is going to look very bright from outside, no.
So when you say residential plan lighting, forgive me, what does that mean? Does that
Just
mean
like a
lights
regular
on the
home.
building?
Just like a
Buildings?
regular home, low wattage lightings.
Okay, like on a garage or in the front of a house, or?
Yes.
So you would have that on the house, obviously, and then probably on the barn as well?
I don't know about the barn. I think there is landscape lights that focus the barn.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's all you're planning. Is there any requirement for additional lighting from a safety perspective for this type of use?
There is not any, I should say, there's not any city requirement. I don't know if the state requires anything additional as part of their permitting process. But the only thing that's proposed for lighting is lighting on the building itself, and it's residential style porch lighting, for, you know, a less technical term.
Okay, great. I think that concludes my questions for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may interrupt, I do have Paul Davis. They did have further time to look into the ITT trip generation to get back to Mr. Hooper's questions. If we could call on
Yes.
Paul.
Thank you, Chairman Bernabic, and thank you, Sarah. I did look up the ITE trip generation for an assisted living facility, and what it is 2.6 daily trips per bed. So with this proposal being 12 beds, that's 31.2 daily trips. We'd need to add in probably at least 4 daily trips for the 2 employees to and from the facility. So approximately 35 daily trips. That would be comparable to 2 homes at 26 to 28 daily trips, or 3 homes just under 40. So it's either slightly above a 2-home development or comparable to a 3.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Hooper, did you have anything in addition for Mr. Davis?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. A few questions for you, and I guess since we were last talking with landscaping, if the landscape engineer is still on, the proposed plantings in the back had a 2-inch caliper, and where is that at? Is that diameter abreast? How
Yes.
tall of a tree is that, and how much does that cover?
A 2-inch caliper tree is typically going to be approximately 15 to 20 feet tall, depending on the species. If you're able to zoom in on the back of the property, or if I could share my screen, I could show you a little bit more about what is proposed in the back.
Yeah, he can share his screen. I unfortunately can't with the way this is set up right now.
Okay,
So feel free.
I'll click share and see if that works. Can you see that?
Yes.
All right. So you can see in gray all the existing trees along in the back here. The smaller clusters here are apple trees from what probably was a small fruit orchard. Trees, the lines here are existing evergreens. You can see my cursor. There's apple. This is a cluster of existing deciduous trees, including mulberry, I believe, maple. There are 3 large maples in the northeast corner right here. And all of these native trees that are in black are proposed to replace mainly two large maples that will be coming down in preparation for the building construction. So all of these trees, yes, will come in at small, at 2-inch caliper to be cost effective and economical for development, but they will all potentially grow to be 60, 70, 80 feet tall, providing more privacy as they grow. If you look here at the property, this is the open property gateway here. You can see the overhead wires running north and south directly through the site. Behind those wires, there's almost no change to the grade and the existing trees that are currently on site. So what's being done here is that we're proposing many trees, not just a few, but many trees to be grown into the mix of what's already existing. And it will provide a pretty thick privacy buffer between the existing residents and the new construction.
Why do we have trees proposed to planted on the lot line? To the right?
To the right, the south side right here?
Yes.
It's actually at a pretty large scale. This is 1 to 20, so those are actually proposed about 8 to 10 feet off of the property line. And if you see here in light gray, this area here is the current existing fence that was built south of the property line.
The dots in the middle of what you show as a tree, there's a dot and a circle. What does that show? What does that mean?
The circle, this large complete circle within the tree would be the mulch, the border of the mulch around the tree.
Got it.
It's about
Okay.
5 feet diameter, 6 feet diameter.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? For a senior care facility, and I'm sure you've already mentioned some of the types of seniors that could be there. I heard patients with dementia, patients with, can you explain, I guess, what do you intend on putting there for residents? And what does the state allow?
So, state of Michigan allows, there are different type of licensing. One is just for aged, and there is Alzheimer's and dementia license that requires a special training for the staff. Then comes with mentally challenged, behavior related. We are only designed to, I'm only designed, we are going to take aged and people with the mild dementia with no behavior related disturbances, which is a diagnosis. So they are not allowed to have, they may have some memory issues, they may have some cognitive issues, they may have problem with walking, they may need a walker or a wheelchair. The staff can assist. But we don't take anybody who has combative behavior or aggressiveness or wandering, because I don't want to take those. This is only for like seniors with some memory or cannot live alone.
What happens if a person progresses to that point?
There were situations that we will have to contact the family if a resident displays or get into a combative stage and cannot be even controlled with the medical help. We will discharge them from the facility to find an appropriate another alternative. And Heather usually helps out with a lot of other settings, which is suitable for them.
So all of your licenses will be through the state, and there's really nothing through the city outside of our ordinance say that we go by what the state prescribes, I guess, for the rules.
Yes, they have specific regulations.
Okay. There was a comment about the historic district area and letting houses down We did have a meeting with the Historic District several months ago, and those concerns were let out. I have some big concerns myself about what has happened with the historic houses, so I would ask that, I guess, if you could talk to or look through those notes to see some of our concerns as planning commissioners as to how we need to go forward in regards to some of the historic district buildings that we've lost at a massive rates in the last several years. Including this barn, you talked about a plan and what work is needed. Is there really a lot of work needed for this barn?
Yes.
In what sense?
From the front door, entrance door itself, the exterior, the windows, inside when you walk in, the subfloor actually, there are parts of the floor that actually just open areas. You can just see the basement.
Is it a basement?
Yeah, there is a basement.
Okay.
The roofing inside the ceilings are all really damaged. I'm even suspecting mold. Roof is in extremely bad shape. So there is quite a bit of work to be done.
So Mr. Gaber asked for a plan about repairing this barn. There really isn't a plan to repair the barn. There's concerns, correct?
I do have a plan to repair the barn because I want to use that space for our elderly, and that's why I even named the new building the Barn Senior Living. And if the barn is gone, it won't make any sense to the name. So, but again, I know that there are grants available through federal level, state level. I'm reaching out to every option that I have to make it happen as fast as I can.
We're talking 3-4 years?
I think sooner.
Commissioner Kalsunis, if I may.
Yes,
So any repairs to the barn would have to go to the Historic District Commission.
That was my next thought, yes.
Yep, and they would review that. So it sounds like the applicant is suggesting that he would be immediately ready to make the barn weather-tight and stabilized, which I think is in the interest of maintaining the barn. And then future plans would be to restore it. So maybe the commission could consider a condition to make the barn, for now, weather-tight, along with the construction of the state licensed residential facility, with a commitment to work towards the restoration or something to that effect.
Would that be something that
yes,
you put as part of the site plan if this goes forward?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Is this something that would be part of the site plan if this goes forward that you'd have to do right away?
It'd be a condition.
Be a condition.
On the conditional
Yes.
land use,
Yes, a condition.
not site plan.
Oh, well, conditional land use or the site plan. This something you want to partake right away?
I can definitely paint and repair the exteriors and replace the windows. And there are paints, exterior weatherproof paints, and make it watertight.
No
Absolutely.
roof, though? No roof?
I have to find out the cost, because it's just not the roof, even the frames inside are all damaged.
Okay, so that's pretty much a no.
I have to look at the estimate, honestly. I cannot just promise something
For
that
today,
I cannot afford.
for today, you probably want to bring that back, if that is one of the conditions. The last time you were here, and it was for a concept review of this development, I think I called myself the negative Nancy of the batch. And I had my concerns. And again, back then we look at sketches, it's just sort of, hey, what do you think? And I still think I have the same concerns now as I did back then. And again, it's to go by the book. I think we asked, and I could look through the notes, we asked you to talk to your residents. I think the result of that is in front of you today.
Yes.
The road, to me, is an intangible that needs to be addressed. Either with decel lanes or some other option, because I could tell you myself, I shoot up that hill as fast as I can because it's fun. And when I was shooting up the hill today, I was going slow and I noticed your building with the sign, and I had a concern. I had a concern, and I really think if somebody went to slow down or stop, I could do something stupid. And this is not the first time that I've said something like this when it comes to traffic situations on this board, but it's one of the things that if I could do it, somebody else could too. And I want to see an XL or diesel lane because I know what the numbers say, I know what the trip generations say, but there's a lot of intangibles that need to be addressed in regards to the hill and making it safe for how many trips generated into this area. So, again, this is just me, but one of the items we're asked to do a conditional use approval. Buildings like this are allowed in this area, but it requires you to come to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then that recommendation goes to the council. And all this happens over again. So, again, will the use promote the intent of the zoning ordinance? It's on there with a conditional land use. That's why you're here today. The building has been designed to be operated, maintained, and managed as compatible, harmonious, and appropriate in appearance with the existing and planned character of the general vicinity. Adjacent uses of land and the capacity of public services facilities for the affected by the use. This is the tough one for me, and I'll tell you why. Operated, maintained, I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job there. See how the building looks in the site plan. Obviously, the looks of the building was approved by the Historic District Committee, so they approved with what was probably what was there, and that's fine. So that handles the appropriate in appearance with the existing and planned character of the general vicinity. Now, that also means compatible and harmonious with everything in the planned vicinity. And as a planning commissioner for as long as I've been here, there's been a lot of tough decisions that we have to make. And I'm going to take sort of a my sense, common sense approach. The square footage of this building is 6,000 square feet. Everything around you is less than 3. So if I take the houses across the street, they're 3,000 square foot homes, they're 2 stories, 1,500 square footprint, I guess you could say. You're 4 times the size. Not only would I be shooting over the hill, my kids are going to stop and see the massive mansion that's built there. To me, that's not harmonious to the environment or everything around it. The other common sense, I guess, in my mind, item that I have is, where's the nearest site plan that we've approved for this area? You have to go a half mile down the road. We have allowed certain businesses and certain conditions in certain areas that make sense. You know, we even have, I believe, a conditional land use coming up for an auto shop. take a look at what's around it. Businesses, this, that, and then we have to decide, what we have around it. I can't vote for a 6,000 square foot building in the middle of all the houses that are around this. And I don't have a business, and please, wait, if everybody could please, I know it's, please. I can't vote for that. It just doesn't make sense. Because it's a lot. Now, can you take the house to the north and make that a 6-family home? Yes. Yes, you could do that all day long. You're allowed to. But for a conditional land use, in my sense, when we're talking 12, this is a big building. This is a very big building. Could you build a house there and put 6 and 6? Sure. You also have the right to develop as a subdivision, as what we talked about. And that's, you come here, land division, and I'm sure, however we look at what you're going to propose for that area and the certain building sites, we'll review that at the time. I don't come to these meetings with a yes or no decision in my head. It's more of listening to the people, listening to the applicants, listening to staff, and listening to my colleagues. And unfortunately for, again, the intangibles for the road, it needs work to address them. The square footage of the property, to me, is massive. The driveway width, how wide is the driveway? Because I couldn't find it in any site plan.
Our fire department requires minimum 24.
Okay, so we're over 2 cars width.
Yes.
For the driveway. Yeah, that's what I have on this one. Unfortunately, if it goes to a vote, however it goes to a vote, this doesn't pass at least my litmus test for this development, and I look forward to hearing what the other planning commissioners think about that also.
So there is a reason I went with the larger size. Like many people mentioned, there are other residential facilities, just like mine in other townships. Those 3 bedrooms, you're packing 6 elderly, every one of us are getting old. You know how hard it is to live in a 3-bedroom house with 6 people sharing a bedroom? They don't have even enough room just to walk, exercise. Just because they are old, they have rights too. So when I came to Planning Commission, when I bought the property, I didn't have an intention to put this big. I bought the property because it was on sale forever. Mm-hmm. And I was able to buy it with everything that I have, thinking there will be a use one day. And I came in, I looked at the ordinances, I reached out, there is a land conditional use, and I just don't want to repeat another 6-bed. I can put a small one there that is not going to serve the purpose or have them a harmonious life for our elderly too. I work in a healthcare field. I've been a nurse for 13 years. Mm-hmm. I know exactly the number of facilities people are just tied into their bedrooms. I have my parents, you have yours, everybody in this house sitting here all have either spouses or husbands, anybody, parents, grandparents. They need to have a better living. In this Christian Hill subdivision, if anybody has walked into a group home that is existing, 6-bed, you will never walk back in there, some of them. It is that disgusting. I can only show you the houses that I have in the subdivisions. We don't make any noise. Our houses are the quietest. There were neighborhood problems when we started, but when they see it, nothing. They may have visitors, which they are allowed to. The problem is repeating another 6-bed. I can do that, but that's not the purpose. The reason the 6,800 square feet came from, they have more living space. Their bedrooms, they have an attached bathroom. A husband and wife could live together. Rather than sharing with another 5 people, they can have their own bathrooms. There is a kitchen, it's not commercial. regular size kitchen. Obviously, because of the square feet and the fire planning, we have to provide maintenance rooms. We have to provide different things based on the fire department, other planning requirements. That's how it became 6,800 square feet. And the patio, there's a bedroom for staff or a break room. They're employees. I just don't want them to sit outside and take a break. I want them to have a designated area. And there's a garage for storage or park a car. There is no reason. This is not a high-profile building. It's a 30 feet, low profile, just like a ranch, and exterior is done perfectly matching the neighborhood. And we maintain the yard and maintain the building to match Rochester Hills. I live here. I know neighbors have concerns, but think about this way. I have no room. There is an empty land and use of the barn. I want to support it. People talk about American dream. If hard work means American dream, yes it is. I worked in Kmart for $7.15 pushing carts 10 years ago. Me and my wife worked 3 jobs, straight up, day and night, swapped our kids in parking lots. If I got here, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, God. So I kindly say, this is not going to be a nuisance to any property. We won't. That is not my intention. We are not a commercial corporation. We are just a family of 5. Thank you.
I appreciate, again, I appreciate your comments. I will say you probably have no ill intentions. You're only here for goodwill. There's no question with that. But as a planning commissioner, we have to be concerned about also our precedent that we set for different areas. If, as a planning commissioner, if we allow something that's, to myself, that's this outside of what's around it, you could come in next door with the same thing.
I understand.
And truthfully, whatever you would say if you would do or not, and you could buy the property next to it and come in with the same thing. And that's one of the concerns that I have to think about. Now, there is a lot of places in the city that's, again, close to an intersection or in this area or that area, that for myself, I'd be comfortable with that precedent that I'd be setting. And I had to make that hard decision on a lot of developments in this area. This is a tough one. I understand everything. I understand you have great intent, and I'm sure you are going to be a great supporter, but there's the other things that we have to be concerned about here as a planning commission. This could just snowball all the way down the hill. And I have to be concerned about that as a resident of this city. I live sort of down the street from this area, and I know that hill, because like I said, I have fun on it sometimes. And those are the intangibles that I think need to be addressed. I'll be interested to hear what my fellow colleagues say. Thank you, Chairperson Brnovic.
Thank you. Dr. Boyer.
Thank you, Chairperson Brnovic. Well, Mr. Kalsunas, thank you so much for pointing out a lot of the stuff that I have issues with. So I would say right now I am not a proponent of this development. I think it does not look at anything like the residential. It's all brick and Tudor. This looks like a pole barn. It looks like a cheap material. My question, Ms. Kaplan, has the historic district actually seen the house? Because from their comments, it did not look like they saw plans for the house.
Yes, they most certainly did.
Did? Well, again, like the other lady said, the historic districts just let us down. But no, I don't agree with how the house looks. I think it is not fitting into a residential area. And it looks like one resident put it as a hulking commercial building, and I agree, it looks hulking and it's big, and it's not any of the colors that match harmoniously with the other neighbors. If it was brick and Tudor and it blended in, I think you mentioned a white fence. I don't think that would fit in either. I think there's more wooden areas that are not white fencing. So there's no pole barn lighting that's going to be facing downward, like 10-foot poles with lights facing down, not in the driveway or anything like that, right? You also mentioned it's a 12-bedroom unit. You mentioned that if you did have people living on, would that be 2 bedrooms that would be taken by people living on, and then you would only have 10 residents, so then the ratios would be 2 to 10 and not 2 to 12?
Yes, if I do get a live-in, one of the bedrooms will be used by the staff.
Just one, not 2?
Correct.
Okay, just one, all right. Yeah, so I think your ratio is, like I said, as you have the elderly progressing into these worse states, you're either going to be kicking a lot of people out on a regular basis with 12 people, because 2 people to handle 12 people that are, getting elderly and then becoming, maybe going into dementia, it's going to be a lot. I also did have some concerns with the road. The decel lanes would probably help some of that, but I don't want to, say more on the road traffic. I think the landscaping, yes, that you could buffer up that with the neighbors behind you so they wouldn't see it. But I still come back to that the building does not fit harmoniously in with the residential area, so I would just be a no for that.
The reason I went with that exterior look, because it was an old farmland, and building it looks like a farmhouse, and that's why we did choose the white fencing. Again, anything can be changed. The fence, wood color, I don't have a problem with this.
No, that just looks like a pole barn building that's commercial grade in the middle of residential, so no, I wouldn't support that look at all. And I'm sorry the historic districts thought it was all right. Yeah. Well, that's all I have.
Thank you. And I actually have to say, because I've been letting other commissioners speak, but I'd like to agree with that comment, because I felt the same way, and I noticed, I don't know if we can close up the pictures, but you do have on the site plan, and you can barely see it on the color renderings, but you have brick veneer on the bottom, but your landscaping with the height of that brick veneer is totally blocking the brick veneer. So there's nothing obvious about it on the color renderings. It's blocked from view, and it really doesn't do much for the presentation in the building. So my thought also was that there would need to be more bricking and veneer on the front of the building, and maybe even on the peaks of the dormer, because it does just look like a wood-sided building.
Views are different.
Is that the view you were looking for, Chair Bernabic?
Yes, actually from almost any view, the brick veneer is very difficult to see. I went through, because they did submit several color renderings, and I did sort of see it slightly on some, but that is my point. If you're looking just at what you're pulling up, you can't see the brick veneer. The landscaping is really covering that brick veneer. I guess once you get up to the entrance and the doorway, you're going to see it, but it's not doing anything for the presentation of the building, I guess is my point from that perspective.
Ms. Bernabic, in regards to this, the renderings, the brick veneer is only showed on one picture, and that's the last one, 8 of 9. I don't know where 9 went. But what is shown in page 8 of 9 is not shown in any of the rest of the drawings.
Well, right, what I was looking at was it was presented for the front of the building entirely, and I think maybe around, but like I said, as far as looking at the renderings, it was very difficult to find it at all.
It's missing in some of the renderings,
Yes,
and that's
that's-
something that needs to get addressed.
But it does show, I guess I should look through.
It needs to be higher, as you mentioned.
Yes, it's, if I can find which one I actually found it.
So it is shown on the elevations here.
Right. I did notice it on the elevations on the site plan, but then as I went through the color renderings, it wasn't obvious. I found one sheet that, if you really looked, you could see it, and I think that was at the front of the building, front entrance. But that was my thought. I mean, how high does the brick veneer come up on the building then? I guess that's the question. On the bottom there, how high does it come up?
So I'd have to measure it to be exact, but it looks like it's what they would call a belt line brick veneer, so maybe 3 feet or so. I'd have to get out a scale to be sure.
Okay, and the developer has no idea how, with their own plans, how high that would be?
Usually in the 2 to 3 feet.
Okay, so then in all likelihood, you probably wouldn't see that with the landscaping anyway, if it's 2 feet. So it probably does project correctly. I'm going to go back because there were some other pictures in the back. Of the plan. I'm trying to find the one that I could even pick it out on. So it was the one of the front entrance that I could barely, because of the opening from the walkway, pick it out. And I have the enlarged view of it, and that was why I was able to see it, because I did see it on the site plans. Yeah, it would be. Can you see which one I'm holding up, Kristen?
That rendering was done by a third-party company, not the landscape architect. So it may not be completely accurate with the landscape.
Okay, but what we do need accurate. What you're projecting on your site plans and in your color rendering should accurately reflect how you expect.
The landscape architect would be the most accurate one that I submitted.
Okay, but I'm saying if you have 2 feet of brick veneer coming up, and then you have all the shrubbery in, it's not, I guess the point is I guess I was acknowledging there was some brick veneer there, but it's not very effective. And like Mr. Calcuna said, on some of the site plans, it's not, even though it's on the site plan, it's not even reflected on a few of the color renderings, even though it should be there. I'm just saying that I agree with other commissioners that there needs to be brick veneer on the front of this building, not in 2 feet. I mean, up the front of the building and maybe at the peaks of the dormers. Because it just looks like a wood-sided building. And or you want to say like a different color barn, well, that really doesn't fit into the area.
Prior to the historic commission meeting, they wanted to know the colors, and we submitted the colors, and that's how we went with this idea.
Well, I guess in the long run, they do. It's not that something like that, a request couldn't be resubmitted after coming to the commission for, I don't really know why they'd have a problem with brick veneer, but I do understand what you're saying. We're just expressing our concern with how the building presents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the outside, I love the landscaping and the brick pathways and stuff, so there are some very good features to the development. But, so it's just you have commissioners, I'm agreeing with other commissioners on it, and I just, sort of at this point wanted to explain why I felt the same way and what I was saying. And at this point, I have someone else that wants to speak, but I do have another quick question. The plan didn't call, or you're not proposing a dumpster enclosure. You're going to have standard residential trash bins. Well, you have 12 residents and 8 employees. How, and if you're having trash pickups once a week, how many trash bins do you plan on having? Because, I can tell you, I have a household of 2 with a dog, and mine are almost full every week. So now you have 12 plus 8, and you will have items I don't even have in my household, like people that are incontinent. So you have that constantly all day going into trash bags. So
We're just going to have 2 trash cans and 2 recycle bins.
there is no way that's going to work for 12 and 8 employees, I can
So-
tell you that.
The 6-bed homes that I have, we do the 1 trash can and 1 recycle, and it works totally fine. And we may have an extra bag some weeks. Again, every week is different, but we are not looking for a dumpster enclosed any of that. It's more of a residential setting, 2 and 2.
How would you shield those bins? You're saying 2. I'm really surprised with 2.
2.
Because I was speculating that you were going to go after residential. I don't know how you would work out that contract, but you would have had to have, a minimum of 3 or more, 4. You are going to have, you'd have everyday items that any resident living privately would have anyway, plus. So I guess I'm trying to figure out why you think you would only have 2 trash bins for 12 residents and 8 employees.
Basically, I just doubled with what I have with the 6 residents, and I have checked with them if the trash service had no issues so far. And if I have to add even 1 more trash can, I have to talk to the, GFL or something like that. But again, I have no plan on putting in a dumpster enclosure.
Where would they be kept?
Wherever the pickup is, I think the trash company will come into the driveway, the circle driveway.
No, where would you store your bins
In the
between
garage.
all week? In the
In the
garage,
garage.
okay. Okay, I guess one more thing I wanted to mention was the environmental impact statement. Residents did mention a variety of wildlife that currently exists on the property, and which stands to reason. If in fact it does, it seems more likely there would be wildlife existing now, and with construction, it would present a temporary disruption in the construction phase, maybe not permanently. The property's bigger, wildlife will return. But in your environmental impact statement, you just had marked no adverse effect. I don't know, that's really an accurate statement, even though it might be temporary. I think I'd rather see you list the variety of wildlife that currently exists on the property, to acknowledge it, and then say, temporary adverse effects due to construction, instead of saying there is no effect, because
If I remember right, that was a checkbox. I think I checked no. It might have an oversight. But during construction, there will be a disturbance. There is a lot of land in the back of the barn. And last year, entire summer, I cut the grass myself, and I've seen those wildlife. They are in the corner, back corner, and the adjacent property. And they will return.
oh, I'm sure. I think I would agree with you. Residents stated besides deer, there were hawks and turkey and owls and raccoons and fox. Just like any other area that's been open. All I'm asking you to do is to update the environmental impact statement, because that would really be more accurate to state that this type of wildlife does visit the property or occupy, whatever you want to say, but it will be a temporary disruption because they will have room to come back, a lot of those animals. So if you will update
Yes, I will.
the impact statement. Thank you. Mr. Gaber.
Thank you. A lot of tough issues here. I respect the views of my colleagues, and they bring up a lot of good points, good concerns about this development and potential difficulties with this development in the area. I certainly believe that a property owner has a right to use their property as they're permitted to do so by ordinances and laws and such. And you're exercising your right by coming here and asking us if you can implement this use on a conditional land use basis. And so that's your right to do it. But it's also our obligation as planning commissioners to make sure that the standards of the conditional land use ordinance are complied with. And Mr. Kalsunas went through some of those, and he questioned whether this project fit some of those standards. So it's kind of a balancing effect. Your right to do what you want to do versus the potential adverse impact on the neighbors in the surrounding area and the public welfare and such. So I find it a tough balancing act here. What I would like to do is to visit the site again, maybe with you, to show me exactly how everything's going to lay out vis-a-vis, where the neighbors are, where the sight lines are, where headlights might shine, all that type of stuff, to have a better understanding after all the information that's been presented here as to what type of impacts that could have on the neighbors and how we can mitigate those impacts, if at all. I mean, you might say that you just can't do it, and then we have to make a decision on that particular basis. So with that being said, I'd like to move to postpone this agenda item to give the applicant an opportunity to go back and address the concerns that were raised by the neighbors, by the Planning Commission. Consider, maybe conditions to be offered as part of your conditional land use approval that would be acceptable to address some of these concerns, and to see if there's a way to get this to a position where the Planning Commission could, accept and recommend approval of your project. So that would be my motion.
Support.
Okay. So I have a motion by Mr. Gaber, seconded by Mr. Hooper, to postpone the motion for approval tonight until further information is provided in regard to this development.
And that would apply, Madam Chair, to all three items that are before us?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. This is a tough one. There's a lot of work that has to be done. There's a lot of residents behind you. Everybody that has turned in cards today will probably be at your next meeting. Many developers that are in your same shoes have done their homework. They've took their time. They've answered the questions. They made changes that made everybody happy. They made changes.
I am willing to do any changes to accommodate the neighborhood.
And we'll see what comes in if you decide to bring this to the Planning Commission again. But I think as of today, a lot of us have concerns. And I guess we'll see where this takes us. We will see where this takes us. So thank you, Chairperson Bernabic.
Yes, Mr. Detloff.
It's been so long, I forgot how to use the mic here. Well, thank you, Mr. Anthony, for certainly, from November of 2019, and, here we are in April of 2021. So we appreciate that your interest in doing something in the city of Rochester Hills has not waned. I would agree with a lot of the comments that were made tonight by some of the commissioners in that. I had two questions. Well, one was your projected monthly price points in that. Has that changed at all since what you stated to us back in November of 2019?
I was in the 4,000 mark per month.
Okay.
And that's the goal, to have this for the people that can afford, also balances my expenses.
Okay. And my second, question is, because I work with a lot of community, on historic, historic district projects and things like that. So, have you explored any of the, the cost for what the renovation of what that barn would entail? And I guess my concern is that if you get, upon getting a number or something like that, would that in any way just say, I can't do this, I got to walk away from this? So have you looked into that?
I haven't gotten any price estimates, but talking with my builder, I think I can do it with the help of a grant.
Okay, I would really encourage you to do that sooner than later on that. Just for the fact that, it's you don't encounter sticker shock here, with that. And obviously, and I think, Kristen, you represented that the renovation would have to follow Secretary of Interior guidelines, correct? Okay, all right. So I think it's a wise decision to postpone and for you to, take into consideration a lot of things that were discussed tonight. But again, thank you for, again, your interest in doing something with Rochester Hills. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've marked the landscape architect for this project. Do you have something that you'd like to say? Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer some clarification on some of the confusion with the architectural style of the building.
Okay.
I'm not the architect. Most of the screenshots that you've seen are meant to show the landscape on my end, and you did refer to the main architectural rendering that shows the cultured stone and masonry at the bottom of the building. But if I may share my screen, what we're looking at here is a board and batten farmhouse style, which is a historically significant and relevant architectural style. It's not just typical wood siding. And to be fair, a lot of the houses in the on Crooks Road have a facade of aluminum or vinyl siding. So certainly siding would not be unheard of in the area. A lot of the houses are not Tudor style either that are currently on Crooks Road. Most of them are brick ranches or brick and stucco or brick and vinyl aluminum siding, mid-century split level houses. So another item to consider is that there are also no barns on Crooks Road anymore besides the historic barn. So what is being proposed is certainly not a pole barn, but more of a board and batten farmhouse that would match the historical significance of the site.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Dr. Boyer.
Thank you, Chair Bernabic. I like what you're saying about the building looking to match the barn, but it has to match the community and the area that it's being built in. So even if you do go forward and you do get approval from the Planning Commission, you still are going to have to come to City Council and get approval there, correct? Yeah. So I'm just saying that there's one thing to get the battle here, but then you're going to go there. All these residents will just hit their city council people with reasons why it shouldn't. We'll look at how it doesn't harmoniously fit in, and you're still going to be maybe in a losing battle. And it is a historic barn, And so that is going to be the paramount thing, that you have to take care of that barn. And I feel sorry for you. I had a barn like that in Imlay City. It'll cost you $1 million plus. Who knows if you're going to get a grant. But yeah, the historic barn is historic. Yeah. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the Planning Commission would like to postpone until those things are ironed out. You do agree with the postponement?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Okay, so I will move through with, I think we had the motion to postpone by Mr. Gaber, seconded by Mr. Hooper. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Ms. Kapelansky.
Yeah, for the residents that are here this evening, I just wanted to point out that the public hearing was held tonight. So the public hearing notices will not go out again as they did before to the surrounding properties, but the staff does mail notices out to everyone, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maureen, but everyone who has turned in a speaker card or sent an email would receive a notice when this were to come back before the Planning Commission again. I just want that to be clear. The sign on the property will stay up until the council would consider the conditional land use, but the public hearing notices will not go out, just the speaker notices would go out.
Okay, and I would like to thank residents for coming out to share your comments and ask your questions tonight. We do appreciate hearing from you. We just, I like to keep the meeting in an orderly, professional manner and respect each other. We have a lot of respect for residents, and we would like that respect in return. So thank you for coming up to share your comments and participate in, and have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to take a 10-minute break. are going to
Yeah.
continue.
Good, good. That's good.
That was good now.
Okay, public hearing and request for conditional use recommendation, City File Number 20-028, First Baptist Church renovations additions located on Orion Road, north of Tinkin, zoned R1, one family residential, parcel number 15-03-276-030. Steve Auger from Eller Architects is the applicant. Good evening, gentlemen, and would you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mark Zazauskas, and I'm the pastor at First Baptist Church of Rochester.
And I'm Scott Reynolds in place of Stephen Auger, and I'm an associate with Auger Klein Eller Architects.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kapelansky, will you do the staff report, please?
Yes, the applicant is proposing to replace an open-air canopy with an enclosed entrance hall, install 24 additional parking spaces, and add an 8,400 square foot addition for classrooms at the southeast corner of the existing First Baptist Church. This is located on Orion Road. The drawing is a little bit light, but the areas that are shaded in blue, green, and darker gray are the areas of the additions and the new parking up on the drawing that's displayed. The site is currently zoned R1, one family residential, and places of worship are conditional use in the single-family districts. The applicant is seeking the conditional use permit recommendation this evening, along with site plan approval and tree removal permit approval. New lighting has been proposed, and that is in compliance with ordinance requirements. Minimal landscaping has been proposed at this time. There's just a couple of trees here in the parking lot. The proposed addition areas will match the existing architecture of the building, and all staff reviews are recommending approval currently. I'm available if you have any questions.
Thank you. I think you can move forward with your presentation.
Okay. Thank you again, Commissioners, for listening to us this evening. I've been the pastor at the church for about 8.5 years, and it's a delight to live here in Rochester and to be in this community. Our church loves our community, and we desire to be good neighbors in the place where our church has been. First Baptist has been part of the community for 168 years, and we love that longevity and history, and we want to continue to be a helpful community church that is profitable for our community in a spiritual sense. We feel God's blessed our church in a lot of ways, and so we want to build additions to our building to accommodate our current church family. The building was originally put on that site back in the 70s with an auditorium and some classrooms. And then sometime in the 90s, late 90s, there was a gym and a couple more rooms that were added to it. And as ministries have morphed and adapted over the years, there's been a need for some more space. Kids require more square footage in classrooms. The classrooms that were originally there are fairly small, and so we're looking for some larger classrooms, particularly for our younger kids, for our students, and to close in that foyer area. I think I'd want to make sure everybody knew what this wasn't. We are not looking to become a mega church. There's no plan to expand our sanctuary. That's staying exactly the way that it is. The building isn't being proposed as a desire to grow, but not that any church doesn't want to grow, but that's not what's behind us. It's accommodating what we currently have. And even as a church, we've talked about if we were to grow, our desire would be to see where we have a lot of folks coming from and maybe plant or start another church in that area. And that's been communicated to the church. Also, when we hear the word classrooms, we're not talking about a school or anything like that. These are Sunday school classrooms for classroom education, for Sunday school education that takes place on Sundays and some Wednesday nights. So we tried, and we feel we've worked to design a building that meets our needs, fits in with the current building, and hopefully would work well in the area.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to that, just wanted to give you a brief overview of the project. As previously mentioned by your staff, we're just north of Tinkin Road off Orion near Rochester Road. Go ahead, next slide. The property is quite deep off of Orion Road, and the building is set back considerable ways. If you would like to go to the next slide, it will show the 3 addition areas plus the additional parking that's being proposed. You'll see that the entrance area is currently covered, so we're essentially making that an interior space to provide a covered drop-off, a covered ramp, so for weather conditions like we unfortunately have today. That's easy access in and out of the building for ADA and handicap accessibility. The classroom addition, as Mark mentioned, is essentially expanding upon the existing building to provide what we would call medium-sized classrooms for youth ministries and small group functions of the existing membership. And then there's a small addition to the kitchen that's being provided to the north to bring that up to speed. The last time that was addressed by code and health, the health department was back in the 90s, so we need a little more space, add a few more hand sinks and things like that. All of these architectural additions are in the same language of the existing building and complement it. The primary addition off the front is set back and does kind of tuck inward. So a lot of the square footage being added to the building is within, is not highly visible from Orion Road. The 24 parking spaces that you see in the dark blue will also add a paved sidewalk between the directly adjacent existing parking spaces to promote some safety and access to the front side of the building. One of the things that the membership was looking to address was some of the elderly membership having easy access, and then also young families having that main entrance. The sanctuary is right off of that front corner, kind of closest to us here. Go ahead, next slide. That's pretty washed out, so we'll jump to the next slide. It's another iteration. You can see here that there's essentially 6 classrooms being proposed. The areas in the blue are the renovated areas. There's some slight modifications to the stage. The 4 existing restrooms that are 2 men's and 2 women's up by the main lobby area are highly outdated. They haven't been modified since the 70s, so those are being brought up to code in ADA fashion. And then we're expanding upon that lobby area just to create a little more welcoming addition, and then also making sure that there's current ADA ramping and some stairs that address the grade change from the parking lot to the interior of the building. Just a couple of brief overviews. The darker gray area is the existing building. We have it modeled here. The lighter areas, we're not proposing gray brick or to change the existing architecture of the building. We're just simply doing that as a graphical purpose to show you new and old. All of the proposed materials and the architectural style are to complement what's existing. Go ahead, next slide. So this is the front entrance canopy. The existing sanctuary has a glulam structure with brick and along with some art glass. So we took that vocabulary and moved forward with it with the addition. You can see here that primarily the addition is actually tucked back in, so most of the square footage is pretty minimal from the visibility standpoint of the exterior. Go ahead, next slide. And then last but not least, the education or classroom wing addition kind of stays with the same horizontal vocabulary of the existing building while adding those kind of 30 by 30 classroom spaces that are not really available in the existing building, so to provide better spaces for the existing membership of the church. With that said, we're here for questions and comments and concerns.
Thank you. This does require a public hearing, and I will open the public hearing now, and I have one speaker card from Wayne P. Waller.
Gotta get glasses. When you get old, you can't see.
I can relate to that.
Okay, my name is Wayne Waller. This is my wife, Irene. We live at 6370 Orion Road, directly across from the First Baptist Church on Rochester Hills, which is zoned residential. And I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for us to voice our concerns to the Planning Committee regarding the proposed plan for First Baptist Church expansion We're directly located, I'm repeating myself here. My wife typed this up for me. I can't remember anything. We are directly located across the church and live in a residential area. Our main concerns with the plan are, number one, parking. We met with Pastor Mark, and he agreed that the additional parking spaces are not needed at the present time. Please consider removing the additional parking from the plan. Number two, I want to thank Mark and the church for shutting off the bright parking lights after we met, and they've been going off between 8 and 8:30. I'd like to request that in the plan that the parking lots continue to shut off between 8 and 9 p.m. with the exception when there's other evening church events. We also, I'd like the commission to consider evergreens added to the east parking lot to make it more aesthetically pleasing. All I can say is thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm all done then. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Roediger, is there anyone that has their hand raised on Zoom?
I do not have anyone at this time on the Zoom meeting with their hand raised, no.
Okay, and Ms. Gentry, are there any email communications? No. Okay, and is there anyone attending Zoom right now? Because the public hearing is open, and once I close it,
Yes, we do have quite a bit of attendees on Zoom still, but we do not have anyone with their hand raised, no.
okay, then I'm going to ask if someone would like to speak, if they would raise their hand, because once I close the public hearing, your opportunity will be gone to speak.
And just to clarify that, we did receive a couple of emails that you received prior to this meeting. Yeah, but there's none that have come in since.
Okay, that's what I was asking, correct.
Nope.
Okay, then I will close the public hearing. I guess I will ask, Mr. Waller had the requests about turning the lights off between 8 and 9 p.m. unless you have church services. Would you be willing to agree to that as a condition?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thankful that Wayne made me aware of that. We weren't aware they were staying on that late.
Okay, great. And what about his request for evergreens?
Yeah, we had discussed, we've had a couple discussions with Mr. Waller, and I've discussed with the church that we have no issue with adding some additional plantings. I would just ask that we make sure that they're going to be out of that clear vision area, that we're not planting anything that's going to obstruct view north or south on Orion Road. So I believe we work with your staff. I think there's an opportunity to either move or in addition to some of in the parking islands, there could be 2 additional that would screen those 24 parking spaces if we can make the spacing work. And in addition to that, or we can add additional evergreen plantings. If you want to go to that 3/4 shot from Google Earth, I tried to add that here so we could have a discussion here with the commission. There's an opportunity to add some evergreens and plantings on that right side of that image there where the detention pond is. I believe there's some area that we could add some plantings outside of that clear vision area and still maintain that safety issue.
Okay, that's great. So you're willing, we would condition that to work with staff toward further additional plantings and landscaping?
Absolutely. We'd be more than willing to work with the staff.
Okay, thank you. Now, I know he expressed that you had stated that you don't need the additional parking right now. Could you explain why you're requesting the additional parking?
Yeah, so let me clarify that the discussion point of the parking, technically speaking, the number of seats in the sanctuary, the zoning ordinance does not require us to add additional parking. Both the addition and the additional parking is provided for a safety element for membership. Specifically, there's been a lot of membership that isn't close enough to the front door. On our proposed site plan, there is a sidewalk, a paved sidewalk and crosswalk that's being proposed between that blue block you see on the screen there and the existing parking edge that would connect over to the entrance. So it's really motivated by adding safety, more so than a need that all of those parking spaces are filled every Sunday or Wednesday or certain church events.
Okay, so it's motivated by safety. Remind me how many spaces you're adding again?
We're only adding 24 spaces, so a handful of those are going to be handicap parking spaces. Yeah, so it's difficult to see here, but a number of them, or a large amount of them, are handicap spaces that directly feed to the adjacent sidewalk. It's a little washed out here on our screen. You can see it a little bit better up there on your TV screen, but that arrow, the couple of text and arrows that you see pointing just above where it goes from dark lines to really faint, it's speaking to that sidewalk that's proposed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gaber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. I had some of the same questions that were raised, and I still don't understand about the parking and the safety impact, because what you're saying is that somebody has to walk over to the sidewalk to basically traverse, to cross the drive aisle to get to the front entrance, and I don't see much difference in that versus walking down the drive aisle itself like most churches provide. So I guess I'm still trying to understand the safety component and as to why that parking area is needed.
So currently what's proposed is all of the parking does not have any sidewalks or direct access to that front entry, and that's mainly our motive there, is to get people on a sidewalk, especially now that the front entranceway does have a partial covered drop-off area. It doesn't extend all the way out into that drive, but we do expect some additional drop-off that's going to be occurring at that main door. And that is kind of the main motive here, is addressing not only an increase of square footage at the lobby addition, but also promoting kind of that safety when we have inclement weather, and getting people, young families. We have a lot of young families that come in, with their baby carrier and their strollers and things, that are actually trying to find the parking spaces nearest to sidewalks. So that was the main motive there. Right now they fit. I think the concern of, some of the clear vision area we could easily address. So we feel like, it's something that we would like to do, just to promote that safety element and to promote a better access to that front door of the church.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is it's really not a safety issue, it's really a convenience issue, because you want to get more people closer to have better access and have to travel less distance to get to the front doors, which makes sense, but to me that makes more sense than the safety issue. So I can appreciate that. Whether it's necessary or not, that's up for debate, because you meet your numbers without that, and I believe you said you're not anticipating a massive growth. You're trying to accommodate with these additions your existing congregation size. But I do understand the rationale for that now. Thank you. In terms of the trees to be planted, could you plant, a couple of trees on the east side of that new parking area as well? Because otherwise, that's just a grassy area, as I understand it, right?
Correct, and I believe that was something that we were going to review, making sure that at least it looks maybe that north area might not be large enough to sustain a tree and have it flourish there. For sure on that east, on the western portion that we're looking at, and then I believe, and that was one of the comments, maybe we can shuffle some spaces around to make those trees be on the west side of that parking instead of the east. So we're willing to, like we said, work with staff to essentially make sure those vision lines are addressed, and at least have the plantings we show now, if not additional, to address some of the public comments that were received.
Great. Thank you for that. And there's just one other comment, Mr. Reynolds. You said that the facade of the new additions is going to be architecturally compatible, I think is the term you used, with the rest of it. Is it going to be the same material, same color? Is it going to be a contrast? What exactly is it going to be?
Yes, great question. So we plan to match the brick as close as possible. There is a lot of glazing that is proposed. Naturally, the art glass that was proposed in 1970, we don't expect to match exactly, but we are going to kind of mimic some of those colors. So we envision it to be complementary to what's there, not contrast or be a stark, addition that's going to stick out. We want it to be within the general vocabulary of what's already there. So matching brick.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. Couple comments about this one. I do know something about churches and people that would like to walk short distances. I think I never got the most hugs or thank yous when I added more handicap spots in front of the sanctuary, so I can understand your thoughts as to why you're doing what you're doing. This particular development, a lot of what is being proposed, there's space to the lot lines, there's space to the back. The development is sort of inside the current footprint of the sidewalk. We're freshening up the front end, much less challenging than the previous one, I guess I would say. So with that, I would like to move the motion that in the matter of City File number 20-028, First Baptist Church of Rochester Hills, the Planning Commission recommends the City Council approval of the conditional use to allow modifications to the place of worship in a residential district based on plans dated, received by the Planning Department on March 5th, 2021, with the following 6 pre-printed findings and 1 added condition that lights or parking lights be turned off at, I'm going to put 9 p.m. unless a later running church service, daily at 9 p.m. unless a later running church service is ongoing.
I guess I would support, but I add additional condition about the adding evergreens, as mentioned during the discussion, for the parking lot shielding as approved by staff.
I was going to add that to the site plan.
Just add it here.
In the conditional is fine? Okay, that's fine. I agree to that. That's fine. Take that off.
Evergreens or plantings as deemed appropriate by staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm willing to change my motion to add Mr. Hooper's recommendation.
Mr. Hooper, did you have any further comment? You second the motion, correct?
Correct, I second it. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Boyer.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. You have a beautiful church and the beautiful area and the trees and everything. It's really nice. I think saying that you're not trying to open up a school, you're just going to be doing the Sunday school and maybe the Wednesday nights. I think that takes care of a lot of the comments we got that were worried that you're actually going to be starting a private school and have a lot of traffic. So that's nice.
Excuse me, any of those emails that we received, we emailed them back to try to clarify.
Great,
To try
awesome.
to clarify that point.
Thanks, that's great. I think when I look at the front approach, you have that beautiful grass berm, and you want to take that out and put a parking lot there, and you don't even fill up your parking lot on Sundays. I just think that's a waste. I mean, I would rather see the grass there, make more handicaps in what you have, and put a sidewalk between the ones you already have, as opposed to taking out that whole berm. Maybe just move it a couple feet back to get another sidewalk in the second run, as opposed to, it's just when you pull up and you just see it's beautiful, and now you're going to take that out, it's all going to be parking lot. Nobody wants to see parking lot anymore. It was really going to detract from it, so I'd hate to see you really do that. On the kitchen expansion, you're expanding that to add more eating space, or you're expanding it to add more?
We're working with a kitchen planner right now to reconfigure the equipment.
Okay.
There's going to be pretty minimal changes to the equipment. There is going to be probably one additional fryer, maybe a couple additional burners on the hood. But mainly that equipment was installed in the 90s and hasn't been updated. So we're working with a kitchen planner, also going to go through the reviews at the health department. There's a lot of tweaks that have obviously happened in the last 30 years, so
Yeah.
that additional square footage is for function, but in many ways is going to address a lot of just bringing things up to code.
Great. And then the front entrance looks awesome. The way you're upgrading that and covering that is going to be really nice. So I think what you're doing with the building is awesome, and I think it's great. I just would hate to see you take out the berm and put parking spots there just because somebody wants to not walk a little bit further. And you could even put a sidewalk on the other side of your building, because all of those parking spots, if you get them a sidewalk, they'd easily walk on that. I know, it just seems to me a waste to take out that beautiful berm. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Brnovic. I guess if Mr. Hooper would agree, I was thinking of potential land bank situation, that if in the future the different spots are needed, the plan could review and approve a potential land banking situation like we've had in many places, and if it's needed in the future, we have the plans laid out for it.
I guess, let me comment to that, or?
Go ahead.
I guess full disclosure, my wife and I are former members of the First Baptist, so I'm intimately familiar with the church.
Wow.
And the handicap is a definite need. Having 4 more handicap spots out front is a definite need, because everybody right now parks the 2 handicaps on the south side of the church. And so the front of the church is used by the young children, like Pastor mentioned, the young children and the elderly. Everybody else, the millennials and the active adults, park on the south side of the church and the north side of the church because they don't have to access the front entrance. They come through the side doors, come in like that. So I from personal knowledge, that's needed. That really is needed at the church, in my opinion.
Okay. Dr. Boyer.
So my question to Mr. Hooper, so is it that you really need parking spots, or is it that you just need more handicap accessible parking spots at the front of the church? Because I didn't hear you say, from what you were saying, it's not that you really needed more parking spots, but you needed more handicap accessible parking spots at that point.
Well, from my view, it was handicap for sure. But my question I would have, are you having 2 services right now, or 1 service?
During COVID. For COVID, we are.
For COVID, okay. If you didn't have COVID, would you be having 2 services?
Back to 1.
Back to 1?
Yep.
So when we attended the church 15 years ago, they had 2 services. And traffic was, or the amount of people that were attending the church was twice, or 50% more than what's there right now. So some of the emails that were in our packet really aren't true. There's a whole lot more traffic 15 years ago than is currently at the church right now. Back then, it was real parking need, because you're switching people coming and going on different traffic church services, that were being held. So again, from my view, it was handicapped, and then the fact that they're out front where the young children and the elderly, that's where they go to drop off, and they want to get as close as possible to the front door. It's just a fact of life.
Okay, so I will move forward with the motion. Motion by Mr. Kalsunas, seconded by Mr. Hooper, that the Planning Commission recommends to City Council approval of the conditional use for First Baptist Church. Is there any further discussion? Dr. Boyer, are you out? Okay. Okay, I will take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously.
Chairperson Brnovic.
With a pastor of the church, the parking when I came in here, the pastor said the parking was not needed. and I came in with the belief that they weren't going to have the parking. Is that true or not true?
Okay, you cannot, sir, you cannot argue with the
I don't
applicant.
care what I could do.
So,
I'm dying,
please-
okay? I'm dying, and this man made me a word of the God. I asked this man to take my soul when I die. I'm dying of cancer, and this man made a promise to me. Did you or did you not? Did you make a promise to me?
I said we don't need the parking.
Okay, you don't need the parking. Why are we talking? Why is this man pushing the parking? My wife and I are dying. I'm sorry I'm doing this, but my wife died 3 times. I got cancer. I got an operation I'm having in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know whether I'm going to live through. He made it a promise to me. A man of the cloth made a promise to me. Did you?
Wait, I said we don't need the parking
Right.
away.
Well, why is he still talking about it? The gentleman up there, Mr. Hooper, I believe, said a conditional thing, and we're still talking about the parking.
Okay, sit down,
God
sir,
can
please.
take my soul and send me somewhere because I have given up on. I am very sorry. I apologize to the committee. I didn't mean to. I apologize, but when you get a man of the cloth that tells you he don't need it, and I come in here and they're talking about the parking, that's the main thing. The lights are there. Most of them are there. You offer to shut them down. Forget the shrubbery, but I don't want the parking, and that's it, before I die here with a heart attack. Last time I was in this building.
Okay, please, sir, will you settle down, please?
An ambulance, and they'll go to the same time.
Okay.
Oh my God, I don't believe this.
Okay, so,
Can I respond?
yes,
just for a
please
moment,
do.
please?
Yes.
So Wayne and I have talked several times, and what I said to Wayne was, I checked with the architect to say, do we have to have the parking to build the additions? And the answer was no. So I said to Wayne, there's nothing pressing us to build this right away. And if we can save money and do it later, we'll do it later. It's not something we want to do right away. And that seemed to satisfy him. I explained then, the reason we would keep it on the print is that if down the road we need it, it's been approved and it's already there. But that's when he's saying, I promised him that we wouldn't build it. 1, I never used the word promise. And 2, I said, it's not our intention to build it initially. That's what I said to Wayne.
Okay, so you've submitted the plan, and I actually had the impression that you planned on building the parking lot with the addition. So are you saying now that you don't plan on adding that parking lot until it is needed? Or, I'm a little bit confused. You're telling me what you told him, and I'm seeing what you're presenting on the plan, assuming that you're going to add that for the reasons that you were explaining, whether it's safety or convenience.
I mean, if you'd like to clarify.
My understanding was, maybe I was confused, but my understanding was that anything you would want in the future, let's put it on the site plan, and then the site plan is approved. And if we can build it all, or if we don't have the funds to build it all, the building is the priority more than the parking. We don't have a parking problem right now.
Okay, so.
In my mind, we still had the ability to phase it or stage it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do know what you're saying. I just wasn't getting the impression that that was your plan. I thought you were moving forward with the parking since you submitted.
Yeah, Madam Chairperson, let me clarify. So we've obviously had comments and tried to address some of the public comments prior to addressing, coming here tonight. The neighbor across the street's obviously very passionate about the parking addition and those thoughts. From the very beginning of this project, we had always proposed on adding the proposed parking. We know that it's in addition to what the ordinance is requiring us to. What we're doing, the proposal or the motive to essentially, proposal to essentially add the parking, it is with the addition, we're adding the need of, and pronouncing the front door. As was previously mentioned, a lot of the entrances come from the side. So the whole purpose of adding on to the building was to put more people through the front door, hence the safety, the convenience elements here. Now, as the church is, we started this master plan back in 2018. We had a lot of discussions. We had always discussed phasing this project. So that's where Mark is referring to, is that we had doubts about the kitchen and being able to afford everything. If we need to take a pause, I can if needed, but.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on out there. Go ahead.
Okay.
Continue. I think we have a couple people out there dealing with it, so.
Okay. So as of right now, we have already proceeded. We've worked with your staff over the last number of months to discuss site plan approval. As of right now, we've been moving forward and we've already submitted our design development drawings to the contractor, both the parking, all the additions you see here tonight are being proposed and being evaluated from a cost estimating standpoint, and the intent of the church is to proceed with everything you see here tonight. Now, with that being said, with COVID, there's been concerns, and one of the heated debates, as you saw here tonight, about screening. We want to have a compromise. We want to be neighborly, address all of these comments. There has always been the motive of adding the convenience and that safety factor, so we didn't want to remove those from the plans or make that a banked parking situation. So we are looking to propose that tonight. So just to kind of clarify a few things, we thought we had provided some reasonable, items. There is a number of items that have come up over the years that Pastor Mark has addressed. The lighting was an issue. We addressed it. We have no issues with that. Same thing with the additional landscaping and screening. I agree that with concerns, obviously there's a usage from the membership of the church that's motivating this.
Mhm.
So we would hope that with the proposed parking as you see it now, with the conditions that were brought forth, that's our goal to move forward, is essentially address that and have everything you see here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kalsunas.
We are still waiting to call the question on the motion for the conditional land use, right? Or are we already past that?
No, I actually called the
Okay.
motion and read it, but we didn't take a vote on it
Okay.
yet, so.
I would like to call the question. I think the motion as is, it's relevant. Well, we did vote. Oh, okay. We took a voice vote. So then I would
Did I
like.
take it? Okay.
Yep.
We never voted.
Yes, we
Wait,
did.
Maureen-
Rose got the
Maureen said
minutes.
yes.
Yes, we did vote.
Did we vote?
We did vote.
Okay,
Okay.
getting late.
Yeah, no. Chairperson Bernabic.
Sorry.
Mr. Kalsunas.
I would like to move the motion in the packet for the tree removal permit. In the matter of City File Number 20-028, First Baptist Church of Rochester, the Planning Commission grants a tree removal permit based on plans dated and received by the Planning and Economic Development Department on March 5th, 2021, with the following 2 pre-printed findings and 2 pre-printed conditions.
Support.
Okay. The motion by Mr. Kalsunas and seconded by Mr. Hooper that the Planning Commission grants a tree removal permit for First Baptist Church. Is there any discussion on the motion? Take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Chairperson Bernabic.
You can proceed, Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you. I'd like to move the motion for the site plan in the matter of City File Number 20-028, First Baptist Church of Rochester. The Planning Commission approves the site plan based on plans dated and received by the Planning Department on March 5th, 2021, with the following 4 pre-printed findings and 1 pre-printed condition.
Support.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Kalsunas, seconded by Mr. Hooper, that the Planning Commission approves the site plan for First Baptist Church of Rochester with the 4 pre-printed findings, 1 pre-printed condition. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
I do.
Okay. Dr. Boyer.
So even if you get approved tonight, when do you plan on putting in that parking lot then? Just,
So currently, we don't have a confirmed construction schedule. We do have a construction manager on board, so there is no need to wait as long as essentially pricing and things come back favorable. We've done cost estimating all the way through. It's going to be more about material and availability. So it would go with the rest of the construction that we're proposing here tonight.
gotcha. But if you didn't want to build it, you didn't have to build it, even though you get the approval, right?
Correct. So the goal here with the general membership is that this was brought up with the committee. We've had many discussions with the membership as a whole. So, you know, there's obviously the discussion about not doing it was brought forth with the neighbors' public comment. So we want to obviously be neighborly, but at the end of the day, we're hoping that we can address that with additional plantings and other items versus getting rid of that parking. You know, the main thing here is most of the parking is significantly to the north, so that isn't aligning with that addition that we're proposing, and we know that it is going to be used more. So as a general sense and convenience and use and safety, that's why that parking lot is being proposed.
Again, I just think it's a shame you're losing the berm, which is a beautiful approach to your church, and your church is not going to look as beautiful. So just my thought. Thank you.
Okay, I will take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion also passes unanimously. Congratulations, gentlemen.
We thank you for your time and consideration tonight. Thank you.
So we will move on to our next agenda item, which is a public hearing and request for conditional use recommendation, city file number 21-009, to operate Marshall's Auto Repair located at 1848 Starbat Drive, east of Crooks, north of M59, Zone Rec W, Regional Employment Center, Workplace, parcel number 15-28-177-002. Brian Marshall is the applicant, and good evening.
Good evening.
Ms. Kapelansky, will you do the staff report, please?
Yep, just a few brief things for you on this particular item. The applicant is requesting a recommendation of a conditional use permit. This is for an existing auto repair facility on Starbat. There are no site plan changes that are proposed or required, so this is just for the conditional use. Auto repair services are a conditional use in Rec W, and the staff is recommending approval of the request.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Marshall, did you have anything to add in addition to that, or anything you'd like to present?
No, I think I outlined it pretty well with what I presented via email. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have anything to add. I think I presented it pretty well with what I sent over via email.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Gaber.
Thank you. I want to commend you in putting everything together. You seem to be very diligent, very on top of things, which is what we're looking for, so we definitely appreciate that. The only thing I wanted you to address briefly was the question about parking and cars and how that's going to work when cars aren't being worked on and that type of thing. If you could just address that verbally, please.
Yeah, so the way I kind of have it set up right now, with the building, like in the front office area, there's kind of, parking that
More
all the
spaces,
tenants there kind of share. So the way that I kind of handle it is when a customer drops off a vehicle, they typically park in the front, come in the front, I greet them, send them out the door, they get a ride out of there, and I take their vehicle and put it in the overflow parking in which there is, ample parking on the side. So I try to keep the front parking that most other tenants use clear, and then, reserve that for, when I'm completed with a vehicle and a customer comes to pick up,
Right.
I park it in front, back it in, so it's easy for them to just, shoot right out of the parking spot and, get out of there. So, sometimes I have, 4, 5, 6 people wanting to pick up at the same time. I've been trying to be better about, trying to only keep 2 to 3 cars in front and try to, know who is roughly picking up when. That way I can, just keep 2 to 3 up front and kind of shuffle the other ones around so I can, accommodate the, allow my other neighboring tenants to kind of get their own parking spots.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of tight in there. You have a lot of neighboring tenants and such, but,
Yeah.
and parking, there's ample parking on the side, like you mentioned, to
Correct.
pull the cars in there as a staging position, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know there was one concern that one of my neighbors brought up with me that, I was taking up a certain amount of parking spots in front of, my business that was kind of pushing other tenants into his parking, in which case he had to, walk further across the parking lot. That was brought to my attention, several months ago, and I've since corrected it and have had a conversation with him since then that, in which he verified that, yes, it has been corrected and it has not been an issue for
Great.
him.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So you only use the front lot for cars that are ready to be picked up that have already been serviced?
Correct. And then just the short period of time for when they're dropped off and I have a quick minute to, shove them over to the side into the overflow parking.
Okay, so do those cars ever sit overnight because someone didn't pick up a car?
Sometimes they do, yes.
Okay. And you're saying that cars left overnight are always parked in the rear and always assembled?
So the ones that are in service, yes.
Okay. I would suggest under condition number 3, it says cars left overnight will be assembled and parked in the rear of the building, just to add for repair to that. So it reads, cars left overnight for repair will be assembled and parked in the rear of the building. Mr. Gaber. Oh, okay. Mr. Kalsunas.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic. This is a public hearing, I believe, so I will be just asking certain questions at this time. There are several conditions that are suggested. I want to make sure I got your agreement to this one. All work on vehicles will be conducted inside the structure?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Site will be kept in a generally clean and neat condition?
Absolutely.
Cars left over overnight or repaired will be assembled and parked in the rear of the building?
Yes.
And then the last one here is all work will be conducted between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. on Saturdays.
Absolutely.
That, you're good with that, the time?
Yeah, I don't want to work any more than that.
Okay. So I will wait till after the public hearing to say what I'm about to say next.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Chairperson Bernabic.
Thank you. So I will open the public hearing. I do not have any speaking cards. Ms. Roediger, do we have anyone on Zoom? with
We
their
do
hand
have some
raised?
people who are sticking with us, but I do not see anyone raising their hand on Zoom.
Okay, and Ms. Gentry, are there any email communications? There are not. Okay, thank you. Okay, then I will close the public hearing. Mr. Kalsunas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move the motion in the packet for the conditional land use in the matter of City File Number 21-009, Marshall's Auto Repair LLC. The Planning Commission recommends to City Council approval of the conditional land use for its ongoing auto repair facility at 1848 Starbat Drive, based on documents dated received by the Planning Department on March 24th, 2021, with the following 6 pre-printed findings and I'll call them suggested conditions listed in the packet, with a change to number 3, that cars left overnight, and the words added or repaired, be assembled and park near the rear of the building. Again, those were 4 pre-printed suggested conditions to be added. Thank
Okay,
you.
and the wording I suggested was for repair, because those would have to be, he's obligating himself that those are parked in the rear, where sometimes there are cars in the front that have already been
Oh,
repaired.
for repair, not
For
or repair.
repair,
For
yes.
repair, thank you, sorry.
Mhm.
Support.
And actually, at this point, the applicant has agreed to all these conditions, correct?
Yes.
So I don't think we have to suggest them. I think we can, yeah, they are conditions. Okay. Mr. Hooper, are you seconding again? Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Kalsunas, seconded by Mr. Hooper, that the Planning Commission recommends to City Council approval of the conditional use for Marshall's Auto Repair. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Congratulations, you have your conditional use.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to the community.
Yes, it does have to go to council, but we have approved your conditional use.
Thank you. Absolutely. It was enlightening. Yeah, it was.
Guys, even every single person came up with a laptop and they have everything. He's like, I didn't bring a laptop.
Oh, jeez.
I see the masses kind of cleared out when it was my turn to go up.
Shows what they thought of your business.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay, I will move on to any other business. Request for election of officers for chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary for a one-year term to expire the first meeting in April of 2022. Mr. Kalsunas, I'm sorry, I didn't see your number.
I don't know if Mr. Hooper reached for the button first, but I would like to recommend, I'd like to make a motion that that the Rochester Hills Planning Commission hereby appoints Deborah Bernabic to serve as the chairperson for a one-year term to expire the first meeting in April 2022.
Support.
Okay, I have a second by Mr. Hooper. So I have a motion by Mr. Kalsunas and seconded by Mr. Hooper that the Rochester Hills Planning Commission hereby appoints Deborah Bernabic to serve as chairperson for the one-year term to April 2022. Is there any discussion on the motion? Take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Chairperson Bernabic.
Mr. Kalsunas.
Congratulations, and I would like to move the motion in the packet that the Rochester Hills Planning Commission hereby appoints Greg Hooper to serve as its vice chairperson for one-year term to expire the first meeting in April 2022.
Second.
Who's okay, Jerry? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Kalsunas, seconded by Mr. Detloff, that the Rochester Hills Planning Commission hereby appoints Greg Hooper to serve as its vice chairperson for one-year term to expire the first meeting in April of 2022. Any discussion on the motion? Take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. So would someone like to make a motion? I don't think the chair is supposed to make a motion, are they? Oh, okay, Mr. Hooper.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion, the Rochester Planning Commission hereby appoints Nicholas Calsunas to serve as secretary for a one-year term to expire first meeting of April 2022.
Second.
Second, okay. Okay, so motion by Mr. Hooper, seconded by Mr. Detloff, that the Rochester Hills Planning Commission appoints Nick Calsunas to serve as secretary for the one-year term to expire in April of 2022. Is there any discussion on the motion? Take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. So congratulations to all, and I have to say, I just thought about the fact today that it is my 20-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So,
Does the planning chair get a city vehicle then, as part of that?
She's supposed to bring
hey,
cookies.
I'll have to find that out.
Sarah, can you facilitate that, please?
Yeah, we'll have a lot of people, we have a lot of people with lots of seniority around here. There'd be a lot of city vehicles around town.
I was going to say, I have to check that out, you know. Is that a perk? I guess, does anyone else have anything, any other business they want to discuss before we go into adjournment? I do have the next meeting date of May 18th, 2021.
Chairperson Brnabic,
Mr. Calsunas.
thank you for your 20 years of service. I think I'm 6 months behind you. We
A year
discussed?
behind me, but
A year behind
yeah,
you.
we're bumper
so
to bumper.
Getting there too. But I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. And who seconds that motion? Okay. So I have a motion by Mr. Calsunas, seconded by Mr. Hooper to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. It is so nice not to have to take a roll call vote every time.